Chapter 3148. What? Wang Feng's strength had already been proven. He was a king of 12 meridians, and he had even cultivated 5 levels of gravity. Logically speaking, to be able to send him flying, one had to be a king of 12 meridians, who had cultivated 6 levels of gravity, or even more. Sun Jianfang was undoubtedly a king of 12 meridians, which meant that he had cultivated 6 or 7 levels of gravity. What ancient secret technique did he get? Sun Jianfang put his hands behind his back. Now, I have the right to ask for your guidance. His clothes fluttered in the mountain breeze, giving him an indescribable sense of confidence. So what if he was facing a group of powerful enemies, or even if he was being targeted by terrifying crossbow arrows? A martial artist is unyielding. Ji Yuanlong and the other kings of 12 meridians felt a sense of respect from the bottom of their hearts. They knew that a large part of the reason Sun Jinyan dared to stand out like this was that he did not have much lifespan left. At most, he could live for another 10 years. Therefore, he was ready to throw caution to the wind and end his legendary life in glory. But they were the same, and yet none of them dared to stand out. In comparison, Sun Jianfang stood out. Wang Feng roared and charged back from afar. This attack had caused blood to flow from the corner of his mouth, but it seemed to have stimulated his ferocity. His face was full of killing intent. Stand down. Lian Shuerong's eyes lit up. You're not his match. Flag leader, Wang Feng wasn't willing to give up. Although he had been at a disadvantage, he believed that he could still win with his skills. Lian Shuerong glared at him, killing intent swirling around her. Yes. Wang Feng obediently retreated to the side. A king of 12 meridians actually didn't have a temper. Just how strong was this woman? Lian Shuerong looked at Sun Jianfang and nodded approvingly. In this desolate place, you actually managed to reach the blood transformation realm by yourself. It really isn't easy. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. What? Sun Jianfang had already reached another realm? No wonder he could send Wang Feng flying with one palm. If he had reached a new realm, then so what if he was a king of 12 meridians? Blood transformation realm. Sun Jianfang revealed a blank expression, as if he had no idea what was going on. Lian Shuerong shook her head and said, as expected, you only fumbled around on your own and opened the door to the next realm. It's just that you didn't understand why. And in the process of cultivation, you took countless detours and couldn't find the right path. You must have suffered countless internal injuries and suffered great losses. She paused for a moment. Others can gain an additional 30 years of lifespan when they break through to the blood transformation realm. But you've lost too much. At most, you can gain 10 years of lifespan. Sun Jianfang's expression tightened at first, but then he revealed a carefree expression. In life, who can avoid death? This old man has lived his life unhindered and created the ancient Tao sect. I relied on my own power to reach a new realm, so I have no regrets in dying. His name was destined to remain in the annals of history and become a legend on the road of martial art. His life was already enough for him. Oh, you think your achievements are extraordinary? Lian Shuerong smiled faintly. Old man, you've been a frog at the bottom of a well for too long. She leaped out like a cheetah and pressed her palm towards Sun Jianfang. Bang! She was still very far away, but her power had already reached him. Sun Jianfang hurriedly raised his fist to meet it. This was the square fist. The two of them were at least 15 feet apart from each other, but their power had already collided so fiercely that it seemed to have solidified. Sun Jianfang's body swayed, and he couldn't help but take 3 steps back. Then he trembled again and took another 10 steps back. After he stopped, he took another 10 steps back, and then another 10 steps back. In one breath, he had retreated more than 100 steps before he stopped. Everyone's eyes were glued to this scene. Damn, this woman's power was too heaven-defying. Sun Jianfang was already badass enough. With a single slap, he had sent Wang Feng, who had 12 meridians, flying. However, when facing this woman, he had been forced back more than 100 paces with a single strike. Furthermore, he had stopped then retreated. What did this mean? Not only did Lian Shuerong's attack suppress Sun Jianfang in terms of power, But she had also cultivated more than 10 times the gravity, which was why she was able to push Sun Jianfang back wave after wave. She was too powerful. Just her alone was enough to sweep through the world. No wonder so many cultivators of the 12 meridians were willing to submit to her. He Guan Gutang. And the others, on the other hand, became proud, holding their heads high and puffing out their chests. As the saying goes, birds choose a tree to nest in. They were the smart ones, and they made the most correct choice. Moreover, if a flag master was so powerful, then how powerful would the lord of Hidden Tiger City be? How powerful would the king of Xianbei country be? Only by hugging onto such a thigh would one have limitless prospects. Just listen to what Lin Shuerong had said just now. Stepping into the blood transformation realm would grant him an additional 30 years of life. 30 years. Ji Yuanlong. And the others were especially restless. Which one of them wasn't close to the limit of their lifespans? It was possible that if they slept at night, they wouldn't be able to get up the next day. Who didn't want to live a few more years? Sun Jianfang's expression changed. He had never imagined that he, who had opened the door to a new realm, would be inferior to a woman in her 20s. Wasn't this Xianbei country a bit too powerful? Old man, you were able to step into the blood transformation realm on your own in the wilderness. That's really extraordinary, so I'm willing to give you a chance. Pledge allegiance to my dynasty, and I'll not only heal your damaged life source, but I'll also let you step into an even higher realm, said Lin Shuerong. There was an even higher realm above the blood transformation realm? Everyone's hearts were thumping. This was an irresistible temptation. Stronger strength, longer lifespan. For a martial artist, is there any better choice than this? Sun Jianfang sighed. He had previously boasted of his life as a legend, but hearing Lin Shuerong say this, his achievements really didn't count for much. How many blood transformation experts did they have in a single city? His heart had already been shaken, but he couldn't keep his face, so he stood there without saying anything. Brother Sun, come. Water flows downwards and people walk upwards. Meng Ruining came over to persuade him. He had already made up his mind. Furthermore, with Lin Shuerong's terrifying power, there was no need for them to be so polite. They could just force their way through. Who could stop them? Thinking of this, the resentment in his heart lessened a bit. Sun Jianfang nodded. Looking at Lin Shuerong, he said, I can pledge allegiance, but I must make one thing clear. That serpent demon was truly killed by my faction. I believe you. Lin Shuerong glanced at Marong. Marong's body immediately trembled, and he couldn't help shivering. Although Lin Shuerong hadn't reprimanded him, he knew how much this flag master couldn't tolerate a single grain of sand in her eyes. He had actually dared to lie to her. That definitely wouldn't end well. End of chapter. Chapter 3149. The outcome was set, but there was still a fierce battle going on the other side. Although Zhao Seventh was only 16 or 17 years old, he had a wealth of battle experience. He could also release his power, and under the superposition of the 5 forces, his battle ability was unparalleled. Ling Han focused on defense, and waited for an opportunity to counterattack. His true goal was to wait until Zhao Seventh's power was exhausted. At that time, he would blow the horn to counterattack. Zhao Seventh was young and full of vigor. How could he compare to Ling Han, a veteran who had fought countless battles in the Yuan world? With 10 meridians, he could only fight for about 2 hours. Under the superposition of the 5 forces, this had to be divided by 5. Therefore, after half an hour, Zhao Seventh's power began to drop. His stamina was shocking. He was not panting heavily, but he had used up too much of his mystic power. Even the range of his power had been reduced to about a foot. That's all. Ling Han roared and counterattacked with all his might. Bam, bam, bam. He attacked aggressively. With just 3 punches and 2 kicks, Zhao Seventh was sent flying. He had not even used the demon monkey fist. Otherwise, he would have defeated his opponent long ago. It was necessary to hide one's strength. Whether it was the demon monkey fist or the monkey bro technique, it was too important. Lin Shuerong said, Little Seven, come back. Zhao Seventh crawled up and rubbed his chest, a pained expression on his face. He walked back obediently. There was no hatred in his eyes when he looked at Ling Han. Instead, it was full of admiration. It was not just him. Wang Feng and the others were no exception. For warriors like them, what they most admired were those who could fight. Ling Han had defeated Zhao 7th, who was 10 meridians. To them, this was even more shocking than Sun Jianfang, who had reached the blood transformation realm. After all, in Hidden Tiger City, although blood transformation realm cultivators were not common, there were still quite a few. But 9 meridians was better than 10 meridians. Pitifully few, but definitely in the top 10. Lien Xuerong nodded at Ling Han. Now, I believe that you killed the python. However, I didn't make an agreement with you that the crouching caltrip fruit will belong to whoever kills this python. Ling Han frowned. What did this woman mean? I still have an opening for a vice captain. Are you willing to follow me? Lien Xuerong asked. Even Wang Feng and the others were surprised when they heard this. There were a total of 10 10-man teams under the Xianqing flag. Each team had a captain, followed by a vice captain. Wang Feng and the other experts from the 12 branches were all captains. But if he wanted to be a vice captain, he had to have at least 11 meridians. Ling Han hadn't even reached 10 meridians. Even if he had the ability of 10 meridians, he wouldn't be considered an expert in the Xianqing banner. This time, he had been promoted as an exception. However, Lien Xuerong was very strict, so Wang Feng and the others did not dare to say anything. On the other hand, He Guan and the others revealed looks of jealousy. Damn! They had chosen to join the black-green flag long ago, but it seemed that they didn't even have the qualifications to join the black-green flag. On the other hand, Ling Han had only fought one battle, and he had already become the vice captain. Didn't that mean that they, the elders, would have to be under Ling Han? Naturally, they were all dissatisfied and unhappy. Ling Han's mind spun quickly. If he stayed in the ancient Dao sect, then his martial art would end in the 12 branches. Sun Jianfang had tried for so many years to reach the blood transformation realm, and he had paid a huge price in the process. Even if his talent was outstanding, and he didn't need as much time to reach the blood transformation realm as Sun Jianfang, without guidance, it would still take a long time. Following the path of others and creating one's own path were two completely different things. Moreover, the Xianbei country seemed to have walked very far on the path of martial art. If a flag master was already at the blood transformation realm, then wouldn't the city lord be at an even higher level? What was the country's ruler's cultivation level? The ancient Dao sect was simply too small. The so-called geniuses were only people like Li Zhongdan. There was no point in stepping on them. Ling Han still wanted to study formations and alchemy, but it seemed that he could only do that in the Xianbei country. He made up his mind and cupped his fists. Thank you, Flagmaster, for your kind intentions. Humph. His attitude made Wang Feng and the others unhappy. Even captains like them had to kneel to greet Lien Xuerong. And he cupped his fists. Wasn't he thinking too highly of himself? Lien Xuerong didn't care. She stroked her hair. She admired young people with character. What was the point of being polite? However, she was also interested in smoothing out the thorns of these young people, so that they would listen to her. This crouching caltrip fruit is your reward. Go get it yourself, she said lazily. Lien Xuerong looked at the crowd again. I'll give you 1 month to deal with your trivial matters. After 1 month, your factions will become the territory of the Xianbei country. You will raise the flag of the Xianbei country and serve me as the emperor. Yes. Ji Yuanlong and the others bowed. This was a great expert at the blood transformation realm. Other than Sun Jianfang, who could barely stand on equal footing, the others could only obey. Another group of people jumped off the battleship. Each faction was assigned one person to coordinate and deal with the matter of surrender. After all, surrendering to the Xianbei country was not as simple as raising a flag. Elder, I'd like to discuss this with you. Lien Xuerong smiled politely at Sun Jianfang. Even in Hidden Tiger City, a blood transformation realm cultivator could be called an expert. Sun Jianfang had broken through to this realm on his own. His talent and perseverance were both indescribable. Thus she gave him face. If he could survive the loss of his life force, he might have even more potential in the future. Sun Jianfang nodded. She admired Ling Han, which made him feel good. He had no children, so he was starting to treat Ling Han as a descendant. Please. He also became polite. The two of them boarded the battleship to discuss martial art. He Tang and the others brought a black-green flag warrior back to the ancient Dao sect to deal with the details of the surrender. Brother. Wang Feng and the others all gathered around. They looked at Ling Han as if he was a monster. It's over, it's over. You're really finished. That's right. None of the men that our flag lord admires are complete. AI, you better pray for your own good. Ling Han laughed. Is even the flag lord that terrifying? Why not? A bald man said. Don't be fooled by our flag lord's dazzling beauty. Deep down she's as cold as ice. She's a demon. In the past, a captain used the fact that he was a relative of the city lord's family to flirt with the flag lord. Guess what happened in the end? His mouth was smashed and his lower part was cut off. He ended up neither a man nor a woman. Ling Han said. That's what he asked for. You don't understand. Our flag lord is a two-faced person. Right now, she's as cold as ice. But in a few days, she'll be as passionate as fire and melt you. But if you dare to show even the slightest bit of her, hee, you know what I mean. Then you'll be taught a lesson, Wang Feng said with lingering fear. End of chapter. Chapter 3150. Ling Han looked at the 9 people and said, You've all suffered. Sigh. The 12 kings all sighed. Who hasn't been sensible before? Said a large man in azure. No wonder these people had been as obedient as children when they'd followed Lien Shuerong off the warship. They'd all been taught a harsh lesson, which had left a strong psychological shadow. I really couldn't tell that this ice-cold woman had a side that was as beautiful as a peach. Also, welcome to our Black Flag brother. Wang Feng opened his arms to Ling Han and gave him a tight hug. The others also stepped forward and hugged Ling Han. They also introduced themselves to him. These people were actually very simple and sincere, which slowly changed Ling Han's view of them. He'd originally hated these people. As for Si Marong, he was miserable. Although Lien Shuerong hadn't blamed him, everyone knew that Flag Lord Lien hated being lied to. He hadn't acted out yet because Lien Shuerong valued Sun Jianfeng so much that she hadn't had time to punish him. The warriors had always looked down on bootlickers like Si Marong, so naturally no one wanted to plead on his behalf. They just treated him like air, not even sparing him a second glance. Si Marong was dazed. He'd returned to Ashbloom City with a mission to act as a pawn and scout. His main purpose was to understand the outstanding talents of the various powers. In the end, there was clearly a super genius like Ling Han, but he'd almost been buried because of his jealousy. Lien Shuerong wouldn't let him off. Slip away, he thought to himself. Staying behind definitely wouldn't end well for him. And he was already a 10 Meridian king. The world was big, and he could go anywhere. But just as he was about to walk down the mountain, the bald man blocked his way with a grin. Where do you think you're going? This was a 12 Meridian expert. Si Marong sat on the ground. He couldn't escape even if he wanted to, so he could only wait anxiously for his punishment. Ling Han didn't immediately enter the pond. The water was still full of poison, and even 10 Meridian demonic beasts couldn't handle it. If he just jumped in like that, it was very likely that he wouldn't be able to come out. It was better to wait. In any case, the warship would only depart and return to Crouching Tiger City in a month. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ling Han asked Wang Feng and the others for guidance and a better understanding of Xianbei country. The Xianbei nation originated from the extreme north of the heavenly sea star. It rose rapidly after the upheaval of the world and soon conquered the surrounding wilderness, expanding its territory. Why didn't the ancient Dao sect know about the existence of such a monster? The reason was simple. After the great changes, the wilderness was filled with demonic beasts. Communication devices were broken as well. People couldn't travel too far, and their knowledge was limited. It was only when Xianbei country was expanding that they realized that there was such a powerful force in the outside world. The king of Xianbei country was surnamed Chen, but no one knew what his real name was. It was a taboo that ordinary people had no right to know. As for King Chen's cultivation, no one knew. In any case, he was the strongest man in Xianbei, and most likely on Heavenly Sea Star. Wang Feng and the others actually did not know much. They were only in their 30s, and had been born in Hidden Tiger City. Later on, They practiced martial arts and joined the army in order to make a name for themselves. Later on, after many rounds of screening, they had entered the Black Flag. There were about 10,000 ordinary soldiers in Crouching Tiger City, and the most outstanding people would be picked out to join the 4 special forces: Black Green, Yellow Earth, Heaven Flame, and Ink Cloud. Any random person from these forces would be a 10 Meridian King. Their mission was to clear out the demonic beasts within the country. This kind of recruitment was only done occasionally, and it was no different from a vacation. Sun Jianfang soon came out with an excited look on his face. He called Ling Han over and tried to persuade Ling Han to let go of the ancient Dao sect. Compared to the greatness of Xianbei country, it was not worth mentioning. The old man's attitude had changed so quickly. Ling Han didn't care much. He had only been in the ancient Dao sect for a few months, so he didn't have any sense of belonging. He just felt that Sun Jianfang was worthy of respect. He had also made friends with Nie Yang, and had a little maid. He had asked Nie Yang to tell Call Snow that he would come with the warrior that was going to the ancient Dao sect. After staying for a few days, the poison in the pool finally dissipated. Ling Han jumped into the pool to see if the Crouching Bell fruit had ripened. The moment he entered the water, he shivered. It was so cold that his blood felt like it was going to freeze. He quickly used the Monkey King's cultivation method, and a wave of heat flowed through his body, dispelling some of the coldness. It was still very cold, but it was bearable. He dove to the bottom of the pool, and the water pressure quickly increased. Luckily, the Crouching Bell fruit was about 100 feet under the water, so the water pressure here was nothing to Ling Han. It hadn't ripened yet, and it would take another 5 days. Then he would wait. Ling Han floated to the surface, and water splashed everywhere. He suddenly found that Lian Xuerong was at the edge of the pool, and the water splashed toward her. Wang, the beauty, raised her hand, and instantly, an invisible wall formed around her, blocking the water from coming in. Ling Han apologetically said, "Sorry, I didn't see the Flag Lord." Lian Xuerong wasn't an unreasonable person, so she didn't get angry. Instead, she threw out a book and said, "This is a cultivation technique created by His Majesty, the mysterious yellow art. I'll bestow it to you now. If there's anything you don't understand, you can come find me at any time." Sure enough, all the proper forces had their own cultivation methods. Otherwise, just relying on fist techniques to absorb the mysterious energy of the world would be too inefficient. Ling Han accepted the cultivation method, and Lian Xuerong turned to leave. Si Marong knelt to the side, and his eyes were filled with jealousy. A few years ago, he had traveled around the world, and coincidentally, he had been rescued by Lian Xuerong's team when they were fighting against demonic beasts. He had followed this team for a period of time, and had obtained some benefits, which had allowed him to enter the 10 meridians. After that, he had been ordered by Lian Xuerong to return and carry out his mission. But all this time, he had never received any cultivation methods. This damned brat had stolen everything from him. Si Marong gritted his teeth. He had been punished to kneel here for a month, but it hadn't even been 10 days, and he already felt that he couldn't take it anymore. If looks could kill, then Ling Han would have definitely been killed many times over. Ling Han glanced at Si Marong, but he didn't care at all. He took 2 steps forward and said, "Flag Lord." "What is it?" Lian Xuerong stopped, and there was a trace of coldness in her eyes. If Ling Han went too far and made some unreasonable requests, then she would teach Ling Han a good lesson. "I wonder if Flag Lord has any information on formations?" Ling Han asked. End of chapter. Chapter 3152. The effects of the Crouching Bell fruit began to take effect. Ling Han guided the effects and circulated them within his body. Boom! His 9th meridian was rapidly being widened. Logically speaking, the Crouching Bell fruit should be consumed when one was at the peak of 9 meridians. That way, the ferocious medicinal effects could be used to open meridians. Otherwise, because this step was the most difficult, it was highly possible that the medicinal effects would not be sufficient to open the 10th meridian. Ling Han did not care about this. He only wanted to break through to the peak of 9 meridians. Even if the medicinal effects were used up, and he could no longer open the 10th meridian, He only needed to wait until the next morning to cultivate again, and he would definitely be able to push open the door to the 10th meridian. He was full of confidence in this. His 9th meridian was rapidly expanding. It had long been open, but it was far from being widened to the limit. The medicinal effects were so fierce. Ling Han thought. It was as if there was a primordial beast hiding in his body, constantly ramming against it. He felt as if his body was about to explode. However, the more ferocious the medicinal power was, the faster his cultivation level rose. As it continued to attack, his 9th meridian was soon expanded to its limit, and he began to feel intense pain. Alright, he thought, and began to explore the 10th meridian. The power in his body was like tentacles, but this power was too violent and not gentle. Ling Han was very injured, and he continuously coughed up blood. Thankfully, in less than a minute, Ling Han found the 10th meridian. Boom! There was a new outlet for the power, and it immediately surged in violently. Come on, come on. Ling Han was as steady as a rock, absorbing the power and guiding it to the 10th meridian. Boom! The 10th meridian was forcefully opened. This was the Han Yongming large intestine meridian, starting from the left index finger and ending below the left eye. Not only was it opened, but the medicinal effects of the crouching bell fruit had not completely dissipated. It surged back and forth a few more times before finally ending. Ling Han stood up, full of anticipation. He was now at the 10th meridian and could release force. With a single thought, power surged within his 10 meridians, gathering and fusing, forming some kind of indescribable qualitative change. Ling Han raised his right hand and pressed forward. Pooh! A table lamp that had been placed on the table immediately toppled over. It's done. Ling Han smiled, but he didn't dare to use too much force in the room, so he walked out. There was a combat room at the bottom of the ship with a dynamometer inside. He had already inquired about this a long time ago. When he arrived, he saw 5 men sparring. The youngest was only 20 years old, while the oldest was around 30. All of them had 10 meridians. After seeing Ling Han, the 2 young men immediately nodded at Ling Han and said, "Vice Captain Ling." The other 3 men were much more arrogant and pretended not to see anything. Ling Han was suddenly appointed as the vice captain by Lien Xuerong. This naturally made many of the older members unhappy. How could a 9-vein disciple ride over their heads? They didn't dare to protest to Lien Xuerong. But it was impossible for them to have any respect for Ling Han. It could even be said that they were filled with enmity. Ling Han smiled and nodded at the 2 who greeted him. As for the other 3, he didn't plan on paying attention to them for now. As long as he showed his strength, there was nothing he couldn't handle. Seeing that Ling Han didn't show any expression, and only walked straight past them, the 3 warriors who were filled with hostility instantly revealed expressions of disdain. TCH. A coward who didn't even have a temper in the face of such provocation. How was he fit to be their vice captain? I really can't accept this. A mere 9 meridians can be our vice captain. You have to know that the minimum requirement to enter the black-green banner is 10 meridians. What kind of bootlicking did this kid do to the banner captain? Haha, we'll find out after we challenge him. That's true. If we beat him up, this kid should know when to retreat and resign from the banner captain. Which of our captains didn't fight their way to the top with their fists? And this guy wants to test his strength. Let's wait for him to finish before we challenge him. The 5 of them stopped sparring and walked over one after another. Ling Han arrived in front of the machine and stood 3 feet away. Generally speaking, this was the maximum attack range for a 10 meridian king. Alright, come. He didn't use any techniques and just punched out. His fist clearly didn't hit the machine, but the surging power still blasted forward and smashed into it. On the dynamometer, the numbers kept flashing and finally stopped. Damn. Fuck, my eyes must be playing tricks on me. How is this possible? Damn you. On the dynamometer, the number 91,000 Jin was extremely eye-catching. The limit of 10 meridians was only 50,000 Jin, and the limit of 11 meridians was 70,000 Jin. There were indeed geniuses who could break through this limit, but 10 meridians could at most reach 60,000 Jin. 11 meridians could reach 80,000 Jin. 95,000 Jin of strength This was almost the limit of 12 meridians. Ling Han must have broken through, or he wouldn't have been able to release his strength. This was the effect of the crouching bell fruit. But Ling Han should have just broken through as well. Yet he already had strength close to the limit of 12 meridians. How could they believe this? Hey, didn't you say you wanted to challenge the new vice captain? Someone nudged the warrior, who had said he wanted to challenge Ling Han. The warrior's mouth twitched. He wanted to dig a hole and bury himself in it. Although he was also 10 meridians, his strength was only 50,000 jin. Compared to Ling Han, this was almost double his strength. Challenging him would only result in humiliation. One had to know that all techniques were useless in front of absolute strength. What a monster! Super monster! It wouldn't be strange for such a monster to be captain, much less vice captain. The 5 were completely convinced. 10 meridians was already so strong. What about 11 meridians? No. As long as he reached the peak of 10 meridians, his strength would probably exceed 50,000 jin. Apart from the distance he could release his strength, he was not inferior to any 12 meridians. Ling Han hesitated for a moment. He discovered that the distance of 3 feet was not the limit of his power. He retreated a few more steps and stood 6 feet away, preparing to throw a punch. What does he want to do? Punch from 6 feet away. 10 meridians strength can be released to a maximum of 10 feet. But at this distance, the force is almost zero, no different from a light breeze. What does our new vice captain want to do? The 5 warriors were all curious. At this time Ling Han punched. Bam! The dynamometer was activated again. 92,000 jin. Heavens, what is going on? Not only did his strength not decrease, it actually increased. If he doesn't use any techniques, his strength will indeed fluctuate. But punching from 6 feet away from 10 meridians, his strength did not decrease at all. Am I dreaming? Monster, without a doubt, this guy is a monster. The 5 warriors looked at Ling Han in awe. Was this really a person? End of chapter. Chapter 3153. Ling Han thought about it, and took a few more steps back until he was 10 feet away. Then he punched again. Bam! The dynamometer vibrated slightly, and showed a figure of more than 90,000 kilograms. At the side, the 5 warriors were speechless. Why was the level difference so obvious after 10 meridians? It was simple. 12 meridians could hit an opponent 20 feet away, but 10 meridians was only 3 feet away. Not to mention the difference in strength. Even if there wasn't, 10 meridians wouldn't even have a chance to make a move at such a long distance. They would be smashed to the ground. This new vice captain was definitely not human. No matter what he said in the future, he had to listen obediently. He couldn't disobey him, just because his cultivation wasn't high enough. Ling Han retreated again, and after trying a few more times, he finally found out his limit. His power would begin to decline at a distance of about 6 meters. And when he reached around 6 meters and 1 foot, his power would practically be zero. In other words, whether it was strength or distance, he wouldn't lose to a 12 meridians. Awesome. Ling Han was full of confidence. Even if he were to fight with Meng Ruining and the other 12 meridians of the older generation, he wouldn't be afraid. He had a 90% chance of winning. He turned around and saw that the 5 warriors from before had their mouths wide open, looking at him as if they had seen a ghost. Ling Han smiled at them, and then turned to leave. Damn, I'm going crazy. Such a powerful 10 meridians, he's a monster. No, I'm going to transfer to Captain Ling's team. I'm going to apply too. The eyes of the 5 glowed. If they followed a strong person, they would also benefit from it in the future. Especially now that Ling Han was weak. If they followed Ling Han, they would become his trusted subordinates, old brothers and old subordinates. Leaving them aside, Ling Han returned to his room and began to study the power of overlapping. Square fists could also overlap, but from the 3 moves that Sun Jianfang taught him, it could only overlap 2 layers, which was barely enough. However, the Monkey King's fist technique could overlap up to 180 beams. This was terrifying. A single punch was equivalent to 180 Ling Hans attacking at the same time. How many people could withstand it? Ling Han was confident that if he truly reached such a profound realm, He would be able to crush even blood transformation experts. Let's try. How many forces of gravity can I achieve now? Ling Han said in his heart. That 180 strands of strength was only the theoretical maximum. There were extremely high requirements for a martial artist. First of all, it required perception, which Ling Han did not lack. However, it also required that one's physique and strength could keep up. Otherwise, if he punched out with 180 gravity, his body would explode first. Otherwise, his strength wouldn't be able to keep up, and he wouldn't be able to hold out after punching out with dozens of gravity. Is that so? No, that should be the case. Yes, that's not right either. Ling Han quickly left the room and got off the battleship. He found an empty space in the forest to practice. The demon monkey fist was of great importance. It was best not to let outsiders know about it. He practiced over and over again. In order to use the overlapping force, he had to quickly spit out the energy in his body without any gaps. Only then would he be able to unleash more than one layer of strength in a single strike. The faster he spat out the energy, the more layers of overlapping force there would be. Ling Han controlled his energy and didn't use his full strength. Otherwise, the energy in his body wouldn't be able to withstand such a squandering. Furthermore, if he really did randomly attack, the entire forest would be destroyed by him. TSK, this cold-faced woman even knew how to dress herself. Ling Han cursed in his heart, but said with his mouth, yes. After eating the crouching bell fruit, if one still couldn't increase from 9 meridians to 10 meridians, then one could only say that one was too useless. Lian Shuerong didn't find it strange. She knocked on the table and said, there are 5 people who have applied to be transferred to your team. She paused, her pretty face smiling faintly. What kind of bewitching potion did you feed them? She knew that her appointment of Ling Han to the position of vice captain was actually something that many people were not satisfied with, especially some old soldiers. They had already stayed in the black-green banner for 7 or 8 years, but were still only an ordinary soldier. A little brat who previously only had 9 meridians had actually leapt to the position of vice captain. How could they be satisfied with that? But now, there were actually 5 people who wanted to follow Ling Han of their own accord, and 3 of them were even old soldiers. This made her feel strange. Ling Han cracked a smile and said, well, I've always won people over with virtue. Perhaps they saw that I have a noble character and admired me from the depths of their hearts. That's why they're following me. Bullshit. Lian Shuerong rolled her eyes. End of chapter. Chapter 3154. Lian Shuerong did not spend too much time on this. This matter was not worth mentioning. She was just curious about it. What do you want to see me for? She asked coldly. Oh, Ling Han nodded. I want to ask Flag Captain if there are any techniques to cultivate mental power. What do you want this kind of technique for? Lian Shuerong was puzzled. Isn't it because I need mental power to cultivate the array Dao? Ling Han said. You actually want to learn it? Lian Shuerong was really shocked this time. She thought that Ling Han was just biting off more than he could chew, and would give up after some research. But Ling Han actually asked her for the cultivation method of mental power. In other words, he really wanted to learn the array Dao. Hiss, you're a freak. She shook her head. The number of techniques to cultivate mental power is pitifully small. All of them are in the hands of array masters, and will never be leaked. In other words, unless one becomes a disciple of one of these people, it would be impossible to learn it. Ling Han could not help but feel depressed. He did not want to be a disciple of anyone. Moreover, there are pitifully few people who can cultivate mental power. Lian Shuerong continued, this requires talent. If 1 out of 10 people can walk on the path of martial art, then 1 out of 10,000 people may not be able to cultivate mental power. And only by cultivating mental power can one walk on the array Dao. She looked at Ling Han and changed the topic, saying, but if you really want to try, it's not impossible. Wait. She began to rummage through the drawers looking for something. Ling Han initially did not feel anything, but when he occasionally glanced at Lian Shuerong, he suddenly felt a rush of heat. Damn, this charming beauty was actually looking for something with her butt up, the leather cloth tightly wrapped around her voluptuous breasts. It was irritating. Ling Han hurriedly turned his head, thinking that it was strange. With his temperament, how could he be so impatient? Could it be that his self-control has also decreased because of his cultivation? After a while, Lien Shuerong finally found what she was looking for, walked back, and threw a round plate towards Ling Han. It was made of metal, and when it hit the table, a crisp pung sound rang out. This is what array masters use to choose their disciples. It's called the God's Will Board. Lien Shuerong explained. People who are talented in this area can use this to cultivate a trace of spiritual power. Ling Han nodded and picked up the disc to take a look. It was as thin as a mirror. One side was smooth, while the other side was like a maze. It was filled with vein patterns, and after staring at it for a while, he discovered that these vein patterns were actually moving. I advise you not to bite off more than you can chew. Although array masters are rare and have a high status, it requires talent. It's not something you can achieve with just hard work, Lien Shuerong said seriously. I understand. Ling Han nodded. Lien Shuerong waved her hand, indicating that Ling Han could leave. Just by looking at his expression when he answered, she knew that this guy did not listen to her at all. Forget it. After a few days, when he hits a wall, he will naturally know that martial art is the only truth. Look at the current emperor. His martial art is peerless and dominates the world. Does he need to cultivate array skills to set off? Ling Han took the disc back and then looked at it. Lien Shuerong did not say what to do specifically. She just stared at it. Ling Han stared at it. The densely packed vein patterns seemed to have a life of their own, twisting slightly. Is this because I stared at it for too long and left a visual residue? Ling Han thought in his heart. But when he channeled the mystic power in his body to his eyes, he still found that the vein patterns were moving. No, it's really moving. There should be a small array in this disc. As he looked at it, he felt that something in his body was being triggered, but he could not tell what it was. He was surprised to find that there was a small white dot on the disc. He reached out to touch it, but found that his hand could not reach it. When he retracted his hand, the white dot was still there. This is Ling Han had an epiphany. Should he use his spiritual power to touch it? He tried to push it, but the white dot did not move. It's on. Ling Han was interested. He was a very bad-tempered person. The more difficult the problem, the more motivated he was. I don't believe that I can't touch you. Ling Han tried to push the white dot with his psychic power. In the Yuan world, his spiritual power was worthy of being the best in the world. Although it was gone with the decline of his cultivation, compared to ordinary people, he still knew how to mobilize his spiritual power. But perhaps he did not have any spiritual power at all, or his spiritual power was too weak. The white dot did not move. When Ling Han's temper flared up, he did not care about anything else. In addition to eating and drinking, he also had to cultivate for half an hour every day. All he did was hold this disc, as if it was his lover. He was not only in a single room, but sometimes he would also sit on the bow of the ship or by the pool. As time passed, rumors began to spread. Hey, did you know that the new deputy captain has a crush on the flag captain? Isn't that normal? Our flag captain is so beautiful and has such a hot body. Don't you like her? This is different. That guy is holding the divine will disc given to him by the flag captain and daydreaming all day. Damn, his yearning is so deep. He treats the divine will disc as the flag captain. Sigh, what a pitiful guy. He actually fell in love with our flag captain. He is destined to be alone for the rest of his life. All the soldiers thought that Ling Han was crazily infatuated with Lien Shuerong, which was why he purposely asked for an item from Lien Shuerong. Wang Feng and the others all ran over to comfort Ling Han. They all patted Ling Han's shoulder, their expressions saying, "Young man, you need to pull yourself together. There are plenty of fish in the sea, so why do you insist on hanging on this cactus? Hanging on this cactus would cause your entire body to be pierced with bloody holes." Ling Han wasn't in the mood to pay attention to them. He just hugged the disc, and his heart was filled with anger. He was determined to push the white dot. Wang Feng and the others all shook their heads. It was over. This fellow had already sunk deep into the mud, and could no longer pull himself out. Sai brother, take care. After a few more days, The people who had gone back to deal with the trivial matters of the sect returned one after another. With these important people personally handling the matter of surrendering naturally went very smoothly. Young master. The little maid was also brought over. When she saw Ling Han at the bow of the ship, she couldn't help but be filled with joy. But what happened to the young master? Hugging a strange disc, as if it were some kind of treasure, completely ignoring me. Hey, are you that fellow's maid? Wang Feng asked. That's right. Call Snow even puffed out her chest, appearing very proud. Sai, try to persuade your young master. He's about to go berserk, Wang Feng said. Young master, what's wrong? Huan Xue couldn't help but panic. She grabbed Wang Feng's arm and shook it. End of this chapter. Chapter 3156. The corner of Ling Han's mouth twitched. Who did this girl hear that he liked Lin Xuerong? What nonsense is going on in your little head? He shook his head. That's the divine will board. It's used to train one's mental strength. Calling Snow realized that she had made a mistake. She blushed and felt very embarrassed. She took out the divine will board from a drawer and handed it to Ling Han. She didn't dare to throw it away. Ling Han smiled and shook his head. After taking the divine will board, he started to push the white dot again. Under his mental strength, the white dot moved, but the patterns were like walls. The white dot could only move in the middle of the patterns. Yes, it was a maze. Ling Han pushed the white dot, and soon reached a dead end. He retreated and found a new path. After a while, he felt mentally exhausted and couldn't continue. Practicing like this will slowly increase my mental strength. Ling Han nodded. So that's how it is. Is my progress fast or slow? Because his mental strength had been used up, there didn't seem to be any way for him to recover quickly. Thus Ling Han went to study formations. He grasped more and more basic formation patterns. He believed that he could set up simple formations now. Let's take a walk in the city. He didn't bring the little maid with him. He walked around the city alone. Tiger Crouching City was much bigger than the ancient Dao sect. There were many different architectural styles. There were antique stone and wood buildings, as well as steel and concrete skyscrapers. Hey, there's a formation shop. Ling Han stopped at the door of a shop. On it were the words, there's a formation shop. Yes, it had a lot of character. Ling Han thought about it, turned around and walked into the shop. The shop wasn't big. It only took one person to enter, and it was a bungalow. Compared to the nearby skyscrapers, it looked very out of place. There was an old man sitting in the shop. He didn't look energetic, and was resting with his eyes closed. He clearly heard someone enter, but he didn't open his eyes to greet the customer. Yes, just like the name of the shop, it had a lot of character. Ling Han looked around. Every formation was placed in a glass display case, and there was only the name of the formation, and a short explanation, as well as the price. The people in this shop were very lazy, so lazy that they would rather write out all the information than talk to people. Formations are really expensive. Ling Han clicked his tongue. Even the cheapest formation here cost over 10,000 North Xian coins. Xianbei coins were the currency issued by the country. Outside of Xianbei country they were useless. But in Xianbei country, all transactions had to be paid in Xianbei coins, or they would be severely punished. Xianbei dollar of jade seeds were linked. One jade seed could be exchanged for 100. In other words, the cheapest formation was equivalent to 100 jade seeds. Of Wang Feng, and the others only received 5,000 yuan a month. Furthermore, this was because they were captains of the black-green flag. If they were ordinary soldiers, they would only receive 800 yuan. Uncle, do you have any formations for sale? Ling Han asked. The old man opened his eyes, his face full of impatience. Brat, is there something wrong with your eyes? Or is there something wrong with your brain? Isn't it written very clearly? TSK, you can do business like this? Ling Han chuckled. Uncle, you misunderstood me. I don't want to buy a finished formation. I just want the diagrams of the formation. The old man revealed a look of surprise and looked up at Ling Han. Boy, you want to learn formations? Yes. Ling Han nodded. The old man laughed heartily. If you are a disciple of a formation master, then you naturally don't need to find a formation to study. In other words, you are practicing formations on your own. You have cultivated mental energy. Ling Han chuckled and didn't reply. There weren't many people in Xianbei country who had cultivated spiritual power, so it was better for him to hide it. The old man looked at Ling Han a few more times, then took out a book from a drawer behind him and tossed it to Ling Han. Take it. How much? Ling Han asked. You can have it. The old man waved his hand. It's just a stupid book, not worth much. Ling Han gave an "oh" and said, Then thank you, uncle. He stuffed the book into his clothes. It was really thin. If you have mastered the formation, why don't you bring it to my shop to sell? We will charge you 10% of the commission, the old man said. Ling Han smiled and said, All right. He turned and left. After a while, another person walked in. His expression was very respectful. Greetings, Uncle Nyo. This was an old man who looked to be in his 60s, but he was hale and hearty. He wore a long robe and had an ethereal temperament. The old man in the shop immediately closed his eyes and pretended he didn't see anything. He was very arrogant. The new old man was called Gu Tianhe. He was the chairman of Hidden Tiger City's Formation Association. Because of the special nature of formations, his status was very high. Even the city lord had to be polite to him. So if outsiders saw this scene, their eyes would definitely pop out of their sockets. What was going on? Someone dared to put on airs in front of Chairman Gu? Gu Tianhe smiled bitterly. This was his elder, but his temper was also very bad. He continued, It's almost time for the triennial formation competition. The branch needs to select a member to go to the capital. I would like to ask if you have anyone in mind. Actually, as the president of the Hidden Tiger Cities Array Association, he could decide who to send to the imperial capital to participate in the competition next year. However, Uncle Master Nyo was an elder, so he had to come and ask for instructions, even if it was just for show. Go, go, go. Don't bother me. Uncle Nyo waved his hand, looking like he didn't want to see him at all. Gu Tianhe could only turn and leave. This was not unexpected. He just felt that it was a pity. Back then, Nyo Huaqing was so high-spirited. But now, the world was fickle. Ling Han walked around again. There were elixirs, formations, and weapons. Cold weapons, hot weapons, all sorts of things. Cold weapons were mainly sharp and sturdy. Hot weapons were limited to ordinary guns. This was not much of a deterrent to martial artists with 6 meridians and above. But there were actually talisman soldiers for sale here. This was expensive, and not just ordinarily expensive. It was not something that could be sold with money. One needed a corresponding identity. Ling Han was currently a savage. Of course he couldn't buy hot weapons, not even cold weapons. He observed through the cabinet, and found that these talisman soldiers were not written with ink or other materials. They were written with fresh blood. Strange. He thought about it, and decided to go back and set up formations. Ling Han returned to his residence and started flipping through the formation book. End of chapter. Their former vice-captain had died in the beast extermination operation not long ago, so of course he was very sad. But in terms of seniority, he should be the vice-captain instead of this youth, who had popped out of nowhere. Ling Han looked over. The captain of the 7th squad was Tang Hai, whom he had known from Sealed Mountains. But now Tang Hai had not appeared. What did this mean? The other party definitely knew that his subordinates would target Ling Han, but he had deliberately avoided them. It was obvious that he wanted Ling Han to solve this problem himself. There was only one way to win the respect of these warriors, and that was through strength. Thus, even if Tang Hai appeared and helped Ling Han settle this rebellion, even if these people stopped making trouble now, what about in the future? Would they still submit to Ling Han? Ling Han smiled faintly. Since that was the case, then let's fight. Who's going first? He looked at the 8 people. Me. Zhang Honglang stepped forward. Since I'm the vice-captain, I'll go easy on you with one hand. Ling Han placed his right hand behind his back. Zhang Honglang immediately flew into a rage and shouted, I don't need you to go easy on me. Haha, make your move. Ling Han crooked his finger at his opponent with his left hand. Zhang Honglang hesitated for a moment, then immediately firmed his resolve. You asked for it. Peng, he pushed off the ground and charged at Ling Han. He was a 10 meridians cultivator. Before he arrived, his attack had already arrived, transforming into a crescent blade that shot towards Ling Han. Ling Han punched out to meet his opponent. Peng, the fists collided, instantly forming a shockwave that spread out in all directions. In this exchange, the two were evenly matched. Hey, this brat can actually fight little Zhang to a draw. He's not as weak as the rumors say. But little Zhang hasn't used overlapping force. Once he does, that brat definitely won't be his match. After all, he's only from a remote village. Tang Hai and the others said. They definitely did not believe that Ling Han could defeat Zhang Honglang. Even a draw was impossible. Zhang Honglang's attacks were very intense. He used both his fists and legs, and every move was a killing technique. This was very normal. If warriors did not cultivate killing techniques, what would they cultivate? Ling Han dealt with them casually. Since they would all be his soldiers in the future, he decided to go easy on them, and not let them lose too badly. The two of them were fighting intensely, when they suddenly heard noises coming from the entrance of the camp. There were even many people running in that direction. What happened? Little Zhang stopped first, Lu Jing said. Zhang Hongling obeyed and stopped. He turned around and asked, Brother Lu, what's wrong? Seems like something happened. Lu Jing waved his hand. Go take a look. Walala, in an instant, all 8 of them ran towards the entrance of the camp. This Ling Han rubbed his chin. This was a bit awkward. He had been left hanging just like that. He also walked towards the entrance of the camp. Just as he walked there, he saw a figure fall from the sky. Pa! It landed right at his feet. Ha 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 ha. The Xianqing flag was really brought out by a woman. A bunch of cowards. A voice sounded out. Instantly, the dozens of warriors at the entrance of the camp all revealed expressions of anger. Chapter 3158. Surrounded by the crowd was a young man, who looked to be in his 20s. He was dressed in black, completely outlining his slender but well-built figure. Behind him stood 2 strong men with their arms crossed. They were bare-chested, and their arms were as thick as thighs. From the color of their clothes, these 3 were clearly different from the others. All of them wore black. They were warriors of the Ink Cloud flag. Previously, Ling Han had found out that there were a total of 4 elite troops in Hidden Tiger City, and they were respectively the Dark Green Banner, the Earth and Yellow Banner, the Heaven Fire Banner, and the Cloud Ink Banner. These 4 troops were all on the same side, and there was also a lot of competition between them. Currently, the Black Flag was the weakest of the 4 squads, in terms of overall strength and individual experts. There was no helping it. The Black Flag had only been established in the last 15 years, and naturally couldn't compare to the other 3 squads, in terms of foundation. Moreover, because the Black Flag's flag master was the only female, in this world of martial art where men had the advantage, she was naturally treated differently. The 4 squads often challenged each other, and the one who was challenged the most was naturally the Black Flag. There was no other reason than that they were too weak. Now the Ink Cloud flag had come to challenge them again. The young man looked around disdainfully, looking down on everyone. Is there anyone who can fight? Haha, I can hold back with one hand against 10 meridians. Even if it's 11 meridians, it's not like I can't fight. Too arrogant. Someone from the Black Flag gritted his teeth. Who's going to teach him a lesson? AI, there's nothing we can do. He's Zhu Lang. Although he's not in the top 10 of the younger generation, he's definitely in the top 20. This kind of person is definitely one of the top geniuses in the city, and has a chance of entering the capital in the future. But are we just going to watch him act so presumptuously? The people from the Black Flag were incomparably furious, but this kind of challenge was also very particular. 10 meridians against 10 meridians, and 11 meridians against 11 meridians. Now that the Ink Cloud flag had sent someone from 10 meridians, if the Black Flag had to send out 11 or 12 meridians to deal with him, then they wouldn't be able to show their face in the future. Moreover, Zhu Lang was truly powerful. There was no 11 meridians that dared say they could suppress him. If even 11 meridians were defeated by him, then the Black-Green Banner would lose all face. Weak, truly weak. Zhu Lang shook his head. In my opinion, there's no need for the black flag to exist at all. Hidden Tiger City only needs 3 flags. This irony was enough to drive one crazy. Zhu Lang, I'll fight you. A youth jumped out and charged at Zhu Lang. Zhu Lang sneered and struck out with a palm strike. Pung! The young man was sent flying like a scarecrow, flying out of the crowd and landing heavily on the ground, coughing up blood. Too weak, he said coldly. But at least you dared to make a move. You're not a coward who doesn't even have your balls. Bastard! Another young man charged forward, but Zhu Lang simply kicked him. He was clearly still 3 meters away, but the force of the kick had already reached him, sending him flying. To be able to unleash 10 feet of force without weakening. This was the standard of 11 meridians. No wonder this person was so arrogant. 10 meridians with the peak of 11 meridians he could indeed leave. If 12 meridians didn't appear, who could compete with him? Gang fight. Haha. Then the black-green banner would never be able to raise its head again. There's no need for trash like this to go up. Zhu Lang shook his head, his face full of disdain. Haha, in such a large black-green banner, is there no one who can fight? Ha ha ha. The 2 muscular ink cloud banner men behind him laughed loudly, also full of disdain. The crowd was incomparably angry, and a few more young men jumped out to fight, but they were all sent flying in one move. Within the 10 meridians, Zhu Lang really had no opponents. Zhang Honglang's figure moved, and he was about to charge out. He really couldn't stand it anymore. Even if he was defeated, he had to fight. But just as he lifted his foot, he felt a weight on his shoulder. A hand pressed down, preventing him from taking a second step. He turned back to look. Wasn't this their chief vice captain? You're not his match, Ling Han said lightly. Zhang Honglang's eyebrows rose. So what if he wasn't his match? Was he not going to fight? You coward. Not only did you not dare to attack, you even didn't let me attack. You're definitely a turtle hiding in its shell. Coward, don't stop me, Zhang Honglang roared. But no matter how he struggled, he was unable to move an inch. If he carefully thought about this problem, he would definitely reveal a shocked expression. But right now, anger had risen to his head, and he couldn't calm down to think about this problem. Hearing this, the surrounding black-green banner soldiers all glared angrily at Ling Han, their gazes full of disdain. What did they hate the most in the barracks? Cowards. It was inevitable that they would encounter incomparably powerful enemies. Could it be that they would retreat without fighting? No, at this time, what they needed was for the leaders to help each other and unite as one. But if someone deserted, then they were finished. The entire squad would be instantly routed. So even though the youths knew they would lose, they still fearlessly charged forward. No one went to stop them. This was for dignity, for glory. Wasn't this fellow the vice captain that had just been promoted by the flag master? Was he worthy of being such a coward? Scram! Ha ha ha! Zhu Lang laughed loudly and looked towards Ling Han and Zhang Honglang. That's a wise move. However, this has also allowed me to see clearly that the black-green banner is only filled with cowards. The black-green banner soldiers all howled. This made them go crazy with anger. To them, glory was their life, and it was even more important than their own lives. At this moment, the disdain they felt for Ling Han was far greater than their hatred for Zhu Lang. Ling Han sighed. How could these people be so impulsive? He shook his head. I'm your captain. It's not your turn yet. With a light push of his hand, Zhang Honglang involuntarily retreated. Tung tung tung, he crashed into the crowd. Ling Han took large strides towards Zhu Lang. Haha, coward. You're embarrassed by someone's words, so you can only helplessly run out. Zhu Lang sneered. I hate cowards and cowards the most. Against people like you, I won't send you flying in one blow. I'll slowly teach you a lesson. Ling Han smiled faintly. You talk too much. He took a big stride forward and threw a heavy punch. Boom. He didn't use any techniques, just a simple punch. You overestimate yourself. Zhu Lang sneered and also punched back at Ling Han. Bang! Both of them could release their strength. Even at a distance of 10 meters, their strength collided. Then, Zhu Lang's expression changed. It was as if his strength had hit a dam. He couldn't move an inch forward. Then, the dam turned into a boundless wave that crashed towards him. Then he was sent flying. just like the people he had kicked and sent flying before. He flew out of the crowd and landed heavily on the ground, coughing up blood. Fuck. End of chapter. Chapter 3160. Black-green flag. What do you think you're doing? Someone shouted from within the camp. Even though the Dark Azure banner's strength was the weakest amongst the 4 great banners, it wouldn't be weak by much. Once a battle erupted, the consequences would be unimaginable. And even if the Ink Cloud banner won, it would be hard to avoid being heavily punished. Those in power were most afraid of chaos in the army. Could it be that the Xianqing flag could not endure the humiliation and finally exploded? We are here to challenge you. Only your Ink Cloud flag is allowed to challenge, but we're not allowed to challenge as well? Challenge. The people of the black-green flag all roared. This was something that had never happened before, and it made their blood boil with excitement. The people of the Ink Cloud banner looked at each other in dismay. You're all on the wrong meds today. Right at this moment, Zhu Lang and the other 2 walked over. Captain, the Xianqing flag is going too far. They sent out 12 branches and beat up Xiaolang, said one of them. We protested, but they beat us up too, another brawny man said. Zhu Lang, on the other hand, didn't say anything. In this way, the entire Ink Cloud flag was seething with excitement. Fuck, your black-green flag is too shameless. How shameless? Brothers, get your weapons and fight. The people of the Ink Cloud banner howled and raised the weapons in their hands. Ling Han stepped forward bravely. If the situation continued to develop, it would become a group fight. Zhu Lang was defeated by me. He raised his voice. The people from the Ink Cloud banner looked at Ling Han with slight shock. These are the 12 meridians. But wasn't he too young? He didn't even look 20 years old. Indeed, 12 meridians against 10 meridians was bullying. But if they were of similar age, it was a different matter. You can't blame others for your slow cultivation speed, can you? I have 10 meridians, Ling Han said with a straight face. However, I don't mind who you send. Whether it's 10 meridians, 11 meridians, or 12 meridians, I'll accept them all. He circulated his energy, and the 10 open meridians in his body immediately emitted a faint glow. It really was 10 meridians. The members of the Ink Cloud banner were surprised and curious, and they shot their gazes at Zhu Lang. Is he really the person that defeated me? Zhu Lang, on the other hand, opened his mouth wide in disbelief. Ling Han really had 10 meridians. Fuck, he was defeated by a 10 meridians cultivator. How is that possible? His talent in martial art was enough for him to be ranked in the top 20 in the city. The number of people who could defeat him could be counted on one hand, and the number of people who still had 10 meridians like him was even fewer. Taking a step back, even if those people attacked him, they would not be able to defeat him with a single punch. This was a crushing defeat. When they saw Zhu Lang remain silent, the people from the Ink Cloud banner were naturally unsure. I'll fight you. A 10 meridians practitioner jumped out. It was impossible that no one would accept a challenge. He charged at Ling Han, but before he could swing his fist, he was sent flying by a slap from Ling Han. Unable to withstand a single blow. Damn, so strong. The people of the Ink Cloud banner thought to themselves. To be able to defeat a martial artist of the same cultivation level as him with one strike, he was definitely a genius. If he was placed among the wealthy and influential families in the city, he would at least be ranked in the top 20. When did the Black Flag recruit such a genius? Well done. The Black-Green Banner's warriors all roared. Some of them almost broke their throats from shouting. They had been waiting for this moment for far too long. Next, Ling Han said indifferently. This kind of indifference caused the people of the Ink Cloud banner to burn with rage, while the people of the Black Flag were in high spirits, I'll go. Another 10 meridians practitioner jumped out and charged at Ling Han, but he was only giving up a defeat for nothing. Next, Ling Han did not say anything boastful, and his expression was incomparably calm. However, it was this indifferent expression that caused the people of the Ink Cloud banner to feel greatly humiliated. In Ling Han's eyes, were they not even worthy of being his opponents? You're too arrogant. Ah, a person roared and charged out, but was easily sent flying by a single palm from Ling Han. Another one came. and was also finished off with a single palm. After 7 people had come up, Zhu Lang finally stood out and faced the people of the Ink Cloud banner. He said, 10 meridians and 11 meridians are not his match, because I was defeated by him in one move. He really did not want to see his comrades being defeated one after another, so in front of everyone, he spoke of the scandal of him being instantly defeated by Ling Han. What? Zhu Lang had really been defeated by this young man. 10 meridians against 10 meridians, and he was instantly defeated in one move. The people of the Ink Cloud banner fell silent. Even Zhu Lang had been defeated, so who else in the same realm could be a match for Ling Han? Ling Han swept his gaze over. Next. But this time, no one from the Ink Cloud banner came out to fight. 12 meridians come out. Ling Han crooked his finger. I don't mind. The people of the Ink Cloud banner were silent for a while before a burly man in his 30s walked out. There was a long scar at the corner of his mouth, and his hair was messy, as if he was a madman. Luo Ziyuan. He pointed at himself. I will only use 10 moves. If you can withstand it, then our Ink Cloud banner will be defeated today. Captain Luo. The people of the Ink Cloud banner exclaimed. Yes. Luo Ziyuan glanced at everyone. Do you not believe me? No one spoke anymore. This Luo Ziyuan was known as the #1 war god of the Ink Cloud banner, and could be considered as one of the top elites among the 12 meridians. If even Luo Ziyuan was unable to defeat Ling Han, then unless Lord Banner Master was mobilized, no one in the entire army would be a match for Ling Han. The problem was if it was only limited to 10 moves, wasn't it too little? Luo Ziyuan walked out with large strides. His figure was really tall, about 7 feet tall, and so sturdy that he was at least 3 times as wide as Ling Han. When he walked out like this, he immediately cast a long shadow. The contrast in size was too obvious. In front of him, Ling Han was like a child. 10 moves, Luo Ziyuan said in a low voice. I won't bully you. 12 meridians against 10 meridians was already bullying to the point of no further. But who asked that there really be no one below 12 meridians who could restrain Ling Han? Ling Han smiled faintly. Whatever. Luo Ziyuan took a deep breath. Puff, puff, puff. All the blood vessels in his body surged, emitting intense sounds. It was as if there was a monster hidden in his body that was now about to break out. His hands actually turned crimson red, and there was hot air rising from them. Crimson flame palm. Captain Luo is using his special skill. This is a secret art that Captain Luo obtained from an ancient site. It's extremely powerful. No wonder Captain Luo said that 10 moves is the limit. This is actually no different from 100 or 1,000 moves. The people of the Ink Cloud banner were all excited. Their godlike strongest captain was about to show his might. Ling Han smiled faintly. This crimson flame palm might be very powerful, but it was obvious that Luo Ziyuan was unable to use its full power. Otherwise, there would be flames entwining around his hands, and not just hot air. Kill! Luo Ziyuan roared and charged over. Chapter 3161. Luo Ziyuan's physique was astonishing. As he rushed over, it was as if a giant beast was crushing down. Just this aura alone was enough to scare many people. Get lost! He roared, clapped his palms together, and slapped at Ling Han. Boom! Boundless power surged and transformed into a strong gale. This attack was a bit strong. Ling Han used Square Fist to meet his opponent's attack. Bang! Their attacks collided, and Ling Han's figure immediately slid back, while Luo Ziyuan stood proudly like a mountain. Ling Han took 3 steps back, then 2 steps back, and then another 20 steps back in a row. This strong man's strength had reached 6 layers. Ling Han was astonished. This was the person with the most layers of strength that he had ever seen. Square Fists could not win. Ling Han thought. Square Fist could only stack 2 layers of gravity, and his original strength was not as strong as Luo Ziyuan's. Therefore, if he used Square Fist against his opponent, he would be at a complete disadvantage. He didn't want to expose the demon monkey fist, but he was also someone who was unwilling to lose. He could obviously win, so why did he deliberately lose? Fight! Good job, Captain Luo. Seeing that Luo Ziyuan had the upper hand in one attack, The people of the Ink Cloud banner all shouted loudly and cheered for him. The people of the Black-Green banner mocked. It's just 12 meridians bullying 10 meridians. What's there to be proud of? Both sides were engaged in a war of words, and Luo Ziyuan attacked again, flying towards Ling Han. Ling Han moved forward and took the initiative to meet the attack. He used Demon Monkey Fist and stacked 7 layers of gravity. Bang bang bang. He and Luo Ziyuan exchanged blows. It was clearly only one attack, but they seemed to have exchanged 6 or 7 attacks in an instant, and there were incessant sharp sounds. Ling Han was pushed back, but so was Luo Ziyuan. Everyone was immediately confused. Who exactly had the upper hand? Naturally, only the 2 people involved knew this the best. Luo Ziyuan's face was full of caution. He was at the peak of 12 meridians, and his strength was as high as 50,000 jin. Ling Han was naturally inferior to him, and the difference was about a few thousand jin. The problem was, the number of layers of Ling Han's overlapping power surpassed his. Thus, in the first 6 waves of power, he had the upper hand. However, he had never thought that Ling Han would actually be able to unleash a 7th layer of power, which instantly forced him to retreat repeatedly. His 7 gravity. He revealed a shocked expression. It had to be known that he had accidentally obtained the Scarlet Flame Palm, which was why he was able to use 6 levels of gravity. This already made him almost invincible among the 4 banners. But now, a person had appeared, and in terms of superimposition of force, he had actually surpassed him. Could he defeat his opponent within 10 moves? Difficult as ascending to the heavens. Ling Han let out a long roar, and took the initiative to attack. He had never been the type to passively take a beating. Bang bang bang. He and Luo Ziyuan fought fiercely. In practically a blink of an eye, the 2 of them had already exchanged 10 moves. But Ling Han had no intention of stopping, and Luo Ziyuan naturally couldn't just stand there and take a beating. Thus, the 2 of them were still fighting very fiercely. 7 gravity still couldn't handle him? Ling Han let out a light shout, and superimposed his power to 8 layers. Immediately, he clearly had the upper hand on the battlefield. Ling Han had to finish off his opponent as soon as possible. An illuminating pulse expert could only attack with full power for 2 hours. Even if his meridians were widened, and he could store more secret power, under the 8 times acceleration of consumption, he could only last for about 20 minutes. Therefore, he had to finish off Luo Ziyuan as soon as possible. If Ling Han still couldn't win with 8 gravity, then he would use 9 gravity. This extra layer of power was equivalent to an additional 12 meridians attacking. It was definitely not a joke. Boom! Such an explosive power wasn't something Luo Ziyuan could match. He barely managed to withstand a dozen or so moves before he was struck by Ling Han's fist. He staggered back a dozen or so steps, blood trickling down from the corner of his mouth. Defeated. Luo Ziyuan had been defeated. In an instant, the entire Ink Cloud flag was silent. It had to be known that Ling Han was only at 10 meridians, and still had a lot of room for growth. Now that Luo Ziyuan had been defeated, it meant that for a very, very long time, there would be no illuminating pulse that could threaten Ling Han. It could even be said that Ling Han was already invincible in the illuminating pulse realm. As long as he didn't advance to the blood transformation realm, there would be no one who could match him in the same realm. How could they not feel as if they had lost their parents? On the contrary, the people of the Black Flag were shouting excitedly, as if they had been injected with chicken blood. This was really exhilarating, and they had never felt so good before. Ling Han! Captain Ling! This seemed to have become the Black Flag's camp, and the roars of the Black Flag warriors could be heard. What are you shouting for? So noisy! The people of the Black Flag were already in a bad mood, and naturally became even more annoyed after hearing this. Can I shout? I'm happy. The Black Flag people were so excited, how could they stop? Fuck. Someone couldn't bear it any longer, and threw a stone. You dare. Beat them up. Boom. The scene immediately became unmanageable. Originally, it was just a fight between a few people, but it very quickly evolved into a chaotic battle. Over 100 people were fighting, and all of them were at least at 10 meridians. When they released their strength, they could easily injure others. The scene was chaotic. Ling Han let out a long whistle. Fighting in groups was what he loved the most. Stop. After at least 10 minutes, a voice filled with dignity and fury rang out. It was like thunder, causing everyone's ears to ring. Then their blood boiled, as if their heads were about to explode. Immediately, everyone stopped, and some even had blood flowing out of their eyes. A man leapt over from the distance. He looked to be around 40 years old, and his expression was slightly sinister. He wore a white robe, and it could be seen that there was a blood-like aura boiling on his body. Blood Transformation Realm Expert. Greetings, Flag Master. The people of the Black Cloud Flag all knelt. Although the people of the Black Flag did not kneel, they all slightly lowered their heads. This was a necessary respect towards an expert. This was the Flag Master of the Black Cloud Flag, Ji Xiuyu. Do you want to rebel? Ji Xiuyu said coldly. His voice was clearly not loud, but it caused everyone to feel uncomfortable in their chests, as if their blood was about to boil. The blood transformation realm was too strong. This was a kind of qualitative suppression. You dare cause trouble in the camp? You really are audacious. He swept his gaze over everyone. Black Flag, what's the matter with you? It's just a spar. Why make such a fuss, Flag Master Ji? A gentle and pleasant voice rang out. Lian Shuirong's figure also appeared. She stood in front of Ji Xiuyu, and under her robe, her figure was graceful and curvaceous. You call this a spar? Ji Xiuyu pointed at the crowd. Many people were bleeding from their heads. If it's not a spar, then what is it? Lian Shuirong said coldly. She turned her head and said to the people of the Black Flag, You're very free, right? It looks like I haven't trained you enough. Scram with me immediately. In the next 10 days, your daily training will be doubled. TCH, she was so protective. Such a huge matter came out of her mouth, but it was like the two of them were playing house. Hearing this, the people of the Black Flag all revealed bitter expressions. Their daily training had been doubled? They were going to suffer. Chapter 3162. What are you still standing there for? Get lost, Lian Shuirong said with a cold expression. The people of the Black Flag hurriedly retreated. Lian Shuirong had absolute authority in their hearts. Ling Han also followed. He couldn't stand out at this time. After returning to the Black Flag, he saw Lian Shuirong return not long after. Her face was cold as she said in a stern voice, All of you come here. All the members walked out, each of them as obedient as children. You guys have guts to actually run to the Ink Cloud Flag to fight. Why don't you go to heaven? Lian Shuirong rebuked them coldly. No one said anything. They all lowered their heads. What? Now you know how to be afraid. Lian Shuirong said again. She swept her gaze over everyone, and her expression gradually eased. But in the end, we didn't lose face for the Black Flag. Of course, we can all fight. Everyone immediately became lively again. Lord Flag Leader, we definitely won't lose face for you. We're all mighty. One of us can fight 10. However, after Lian Shuirong's pretty face became serious, everyone became silent again. She had absolute authority in the Black Flag. Tell me, what exactly happened? She asked. One of the vice captains walked over and explained the whole story. Lian Shuirong looked at Ling Han with a trace of surprise in her eyes. She hadn't expected Ling Han to be so fierce. Not only had he defeated Zhu Lang, but he had even defeated Luo Ziyuan. He really was a monster. She had previously appointed Ling Han as vice captain out of admiration for Ling Han. It had also been a spur-of-the-moment decision, and she hadn't thought too much about it. But this time, she was truly shocked. This kid was worthy of being nurtured. Alright, all of you go train. Who still has the strength to stand by evening? Starting tomorrow, the training volume will increase by 10 times, Lian Shuirong said coldly. Everyone listlessly began to train. But as they fought, ran and jumped, smiles slowly appeared on everyone's faces. And then they became more and more excited. Today was really too exciting. Ling Han, come with me, Lian Shuirong said. Sai, I can't run away. Ling Han had no choice but to follow Lian Shuirong into her main tent. You're good at fighting, aren't you? Lian Shuirong asked with a faint smile. Ling Han didn't know what she meant, so he just smiled and said, Not bad, not bad. In a month, the city will hold a martial competition. You will represent the black-green flag. Lien Shuerong said. Ling Han was surprised. There was actually no punishment, but only to let him participate in some martial arts competition. He chuckled. Then if I get first place, what's the reward? Lien Shuerong couldn't help but laugh. You don't even know who your opponents are, and you're already thinking about rewards. About that, I've always been more confident, Ling Han said, a little embarrassed. Lien Shuerong was speechless. After a while she said, this is a grand event that is held in Hidden Tiger City every year. Getting first place is more of an honor. However, it's not that there's no reward, but it's different every year, so I don't know either. However, there are quite a few monsters among your opponents. The one ranked first also has the ability to fight 2 realms above him. Ling Han was a little moved. There was actually someone who could fight 2 realms above him. A strong desire to fight rose in him. He really wanted to spar. Lien Shuerong saw the desire to fight on his face, and couldn't help but think, what kind of battle maniac is this guy? After knowing that he has such an opponent, not only does he not feel the slightest pressure, but his desire to fight actually rises. She said again, this person is already 12 meridians, and it's said that he can advance to the blood transformation realm now. It's all for this competition that he hasn't broken through. 12 meridians, and a monster who can fight 2 realms above him? How could he win? Could Ling Han reach 12 meridians in a month? No, he couldn't. Are there any restrictions to this competition? Ling Han asked. For example, can we use formations or something like that? Do you really think you're a formation master? Lien Shuerong shook her head. We can't use talisman soldiers or high-level Dharma treasures, but we can use formations. After all, what kind of formation could you set up in the time it takes to get on the arena? So if you can really set it up, that's your ability. You have to admit it. Ling Han nodded. This way, he had a chance of winning. Flag leader, can I apply for leave to prepare for next month's competition? Ling Han asked. He wanted to spend more time on formations and not waste time on training. Lien Shuerong thought about it and said, all right, but if you can't get into the top 4, I'll make you double your training for the next month. All right. Ling Han nodded. She had really underestimated him. He was aiming for first place. Just as he was about to leave, he turned around and asked, how's sect leader son? He's doing very well. He's recuperating his body. It should take a month or so, Lien Shuerong said casually. Only then did Ling Han leave. Since he had applied for leave, Ling Han didn't feel any pressure. He began to study formations properly. Every day, he persisted in using the God's Will board to cultivate his mental strength. Every day he improved. This was just the beginning, but he improved very quickly. 10 days later, he could already walk out of the maze with the white dot on the God's Will board. After he succeeded, the God's Will board continued to emit white light, as though informing the surrounding people that someone had completed the test of the God's Will board. And with the huge increase in his mental strength, Ling Han finally created the psychedelic array. With a casual toss, the 9 array bases were distributed around him. He then used his psyche power to activate them, and the array was instantly activated. Huanxue, he called out. Young master, what can I do for you? And where are you? Huanxue entered the house. Even though Ling Han was standing in front of her, she ignored him. It was as though Ling Han wasn't even there. Ling Han was surprised. This psychedelic array even had the ability to turn invisible. When he walked out of the array, Huanxue jumped in fright. She patted her chest forcefully. Would it really not break if she patted it so hard? Walk forward, said Ling Han. Huanxue walked in a daze. Even if it was a mountain of knives or a sea of fire, she would not hesitate to step in, much less in a house. Hey, young master, why can't I see clearly? In the psychedelic array, Huanxue spread her arms. It was as though she had entered an incomparably dark environment. She couldn't see anything clearly. It's nothing, said Ling Han. He went forward to put away the array foundations. Immediately, Huanxue saw the light of day again. Young master, what just happened? She was dumbfounded. A small array, said Ling Han. Array? Huanxue was still dumbfounded. Ling Han gave a simple explanation, and Huanxue immediately gave an "oh." So it turns out that young master fiddles with that whatever disc all day just to cultivate formations. I've always been curious about what's the point of that little white dot swaying about. Ling Han looked at the little maidservant with a look of surprise. Chapter 3164. Beginner, is this high or low? Niu Huaqing was interested and asked, Kid, when did you start to train your spiritual power? When? It should be more than a month ago. Ling Han told the truth, and when Niu Huaqing heard it, he was shocked. Only a little more than a month. Are you sure? The old man emphasized. Ling Han looked back at the old man. The two of them were not related in any way. So was it necessary for him to deceive the owner of an array shop? Looking at his lazy appearance, how much business could the shop have? And how much money could he deceive? Niu Huaqing smiled and said, The array I gave you before, have you finished studying it? Ling Han nodded. That's why I need to buy materials for the array foundation. Niu Huaqing shook his head. You really don't know how expensive it is. The materials for the array foundation are expensive. It's too wasteful to use them to practice. Ling Han smiled. It turned out that the old man was also thinking about his wallet. He said, Don't worry about this, I have already practiced. Hey, you succeeded? Niu Huaqing was surprised. Where did you carve it? Did you bring it? Ling Han shook his head. How could he bring it with him? Where are you going? Let me see. If you really succeed, I will open the materials in this shop for you to choose free of charge. Niu Huaqing said. Ling Han was surprised. Why did the old man do this? Did he have too much money to burn? Go get it. Niu Huaqing waved his hand. If you don't go get it, I won't sell anything to you. Damn, you are really willful. Ling Han had no choice but to go back and bring the completed array foundation. Niu Huaqing took it, looked at it carefully, and even touched it with his hand. His face was intoxicated, as if it was his lover. It gave Ling Han goosebumps. Not bad at all. He smiled. In just a few days, you can combine and draw the array pattern. You can be called a genius. He wanted to say that he was a genius, but he thought that he should not praise him too much, lest Ling Han became arrogant. The old man is a man of his word. You can choose whatever you want from the store. Niu Huaqing said. However, to refine this kind of elementary psychedelic array, the materials don't need to be of high quality. This iron core magnet is enough. The old man took out a pile of black stones of varying sizes. They did not look good at all. Seeing the look of disgust on Ling Han's face, the old man laughed and said, Brat, you don't understand. The more natural it is, the more it is in harmony with nature. If you throw it on the ground, can you tell the difference between it and a lump of mud? He really didn't. It was just like a lump of coal. This is an array pattern blade. You can easily carve array patterns on it. Niu Huaqing took out a long knife and handed it over to Ling Han. Come, make it on the spot. This old man wants to see it with my own eyes. Ling Han, on the other hand, did not care. This array manual was given to him by the old man, and so were the materials and tools. There was nothing for him to keep secret. In any case, he was going to make the array foundation. So what difference did it make where? All right. He took the knife and picked up a black stone. It had to be said that this thing was very heavy. He actually felt it sink when he held it in his hand. From this, it could be seen that the old man really did not use ordinary stones to fool him. Ling Han's expression turned solemn as he began to carve array patterns. Be it practicing with the divine will board or making the array foundation, they were both ways to train one's mental strength. It was very simple. Just like a muscle, when it was used to the point of exhaustion, it would naturally improve. In just a short while, he had made the first array foundation. Niu Huaqing immediately took it and looked at it carefully. He smiled. Although it's my first time making it and my technique is a little rusty, it's still my first time making it. It's really amazing to have such a performance. He quietly waited for Ling Han to make the 9 array foundations before saying, Set up the array. Ling Han nodded and continued to lay down the formation bases. This was also something to be paid attention to. The distance and angle between each formation base and the other formation bases were extremely strict, or else it would affect the extraction and distortion of the power of heaven and earth. After the array was set up, Ling Han used his mental strength to guide it. This was an array that he had made himself. His mental strength was interlinked, and the array formation immediately began to operate. "Alright, try striking the array formation," Niu Huaqing said from the side. Ling Han did as he was told. He did not use much strength, but it was still a few thousand kilograms. However, even when he released his strength, the 9 black stones did not move at all when he touched the array foundation. Ling Han increased his strength, but the array foundation did not move at all. It was only when he increased his strength to 50,000 kilograms that the array foundation finally moved. However, the strange thing was that when one piece moved, the other 8 followed. Be it the distance or the angle, it was exactly the same. It was as if the entire array formation had moved a certain distance toward a certain steering wheel. Interesting. Could it be that the array could only move and not be destroyed when it was under pressure? This undoubtedly made the array more practical. Otherwise, as long as one had 50,000 kilograms of strength, a random attack would be able to destroy the array. Clap, clap, clap. Niu Huaqing clapped his hands and said, "Kid, not bad at all." Ling Han smiled and said, "Uncle, this time I want to learn an array that focuses on killing. Perhaps, one that can even the cultivation of both sides." Niu Huaqing rolled his eyes and said, "To even the cultivation of both sides, that's a master-level array. In the entire Xianbei country, there are no more than 3 who have the ability to make it. Aren't you greedy, kid? What's more, this kind of array needs to be inscribed with too many runes. It requires hundreds of array foundations. It's considered a large-scale array. Kid, don't tell me you want to carry it with you at all times and use it to even the cultivation of others in battle." "I've been seen through." Ling Han sighed. Was it really that obvious on his face? "Here, this is a killing array that can threaten even blood transformation experts. However, if you want to set it up, you'll need to cultivate at least mid-level mental strength." Niu Huaqing saw that Ling Han was about to take the array, but he pulled his hand back. "However, you'll need to run an errand for me." "Where to?" asked Ling Han. "To the Formation Dao Association. Find a kid called Gu Tianhe. Tell him I sent you," said Niu Huaqing. Ling Han bared his teeth. "Just tell him you sent me. There's no need to say what it is. If that kid knows you were sent by my boss, he'll naturally know." Niu Huaqing smiled. Ling Han felt that the old man's smile was very strange, as if he had schemed against him. But what bad thing could happen if he made a trip to the Formation Dao Association? "Alright, I'll go." Ling Han nodded. "Go ahead." Niu Huaqing nodded and tossed the book over. Ling Han caught it, and couldn't help being surprised. "Uncle, aren't you afraid I'll go back on my word? Will you?" asked Niu Huaqing. "No." Ling Han shook his head. "Then it's settled," Niu Huaqing said confidently, with a "you're so stupid" look on his face. Fuck. Chapter 3165. Ling Han kept the new set of array foundations. As for the old set, he left it in the shop. Niu Huaqing said that he wanted to take a look. In any case, it was made of wood, and it was already somewhat damaged. Because drawing on the power of heaven and earth was a huge pressure. How could ordinary wood withstand it? He had always been a trustworthy person. Thus, after leaving the array shop, he walked towards the Array Dao Association. It didn't matter if he didn't know the way. He could just ask someone. The Array Dao Association was famous. There were motorcycles in the city that could be ridden, although the speed wasn't as fast as Ling Han's full speed. Firstly, Ling Han wasn't in a hurry. Secondly, he didn't need to use his own strength, so why not take a ride? If he took a car to the Array Dao Association, it would cost 2 Xian North coins. It wasn't cheap. After Ling Han paid, he got off the car and looked forward. In front of him was the Array Dao Association. It was a huge building. First, there was a row of stairs. It was as tall as a 2-story building. Then there was a white auditorium-like hall. There were many huge pillars supporting it. It was extremely spectacular. There were almost no people coming in or out. If not for the 4 guards standing at the top of the stairs, people would really suspect that this was a haunted house. Ling Han walked up the stairs and quickly reached the end. However, he was blocked by the 4 people. "Who is it?" One of them asked. He seemed to be a man of few words. Ling Han smiled and said, "My name is Ling Han. I'm here to find a person called Gu Tianhe. Is there such a person?" "Yes, how could there not be? He was the boss here." The 4 guards looked at each other. "Did you eat the wrong medicine? Why did you come here to ask if there was a person called President Gu here?" "Hee hee, you want to see our president?" One of the guards laughed. "What? Gu Tianhe was actually the president of the Array Dao Association?" Ling Han clenched his teeth. Could it be that he was tricked by that old man? He actually said that Gu Tianhe was a small figure in the Array Dao Association. It was just that he had been entrusted with a task, so he had to be loyal to it. He continued, "Please inform President Gu that I'm, sent by the owner of a formation shop." Puff, the 4 guards almost burst out laughing. How many formation shops were there in the city? Which one of them sent you here? You can't even speak properly. And you still want to meet the president? Ling Han felt more and more that he had been tricked by the old man. Wasn't he deliberately creating a misunderstanding by coming up with such a strange name? That array formation shop will be called Array Formation Shop. He said, "I'll have to trouble the 4 of you to pass on a message. I don't have any extravagant requests for President Gu to meet me. He was only going to make a trip for Niu Huaqing. Once the person arrived and the news was delivered, his task would be completed. As for the rest, he didn't care. Apologies, President Gu is busy with trivial matters. We dare not disturb you," the 4 guards said. What a joke. If everyone wanted to see President Gu, and they all went to report, wouldn't President Gu be annoyed to death? Where would he find the time to study the Array Dao? Let's go. They wanted to chase Ling Han away. If the 4 of them went to inform Gu Tianhe, and Gu Tianhe didn't want to see them, Ling Han wouldn't bother them. He would just turn around and leave. But if they didn't report, Ling Han would feel that he didn't complete his task. Thus, he argued for the 4 of them to make an exception. No matter what, he had to pass on a message. "What's the matter? Why are you making such a ruckus here?" A young man walked out of the hall. He was dressed in white and had an elegant demeanor. "Young Master Jun." The 4 guards hurriedly bowed with incomparably respectful expressions. This was young Master Yin Jun. His talent in the Array Dao was incomparably outstanding. He was known as a rare genius in the Array Dao. He was accepted as a disciple by Deacon Liu. He was only in his early 20s, but he had already become a beginner array master. An array master. It would be amazing if he had a master. There was another young man beside Yin Jun. His name was Yang Ziqing. He was a young master of the city's prestigious Yang clan. He specially came to find Yin Jun to ask him to create an array formation for him. "This is the Array Dao Association, not a market," Yang Ziqing said in an arrogant tone. Seriously, did he think that any Tom, Dick, or Harry had the right to enter this place? Wasn't his status being dragged down as well? Ling Han looked at Yang Ziqing. Although the 4 guards had been rejecting him previously, at least their attitudes weren't bad. Thus he didn't get angry. However, Yang Ziqing's attitude made him unhappy. "Who do you think you are?" he directly retorted. "You dare to humiliate me?" Yang Ziqing was furious. "Oh, then you're not a thing." Ling Han laughed. "Bastard." Yang Ziqing stomped his feet. He was angered by Ling Han in just a few words. "Young Master Jun, it's like this." One of the guards explained. "This person is called Ling Han. He said he wants to see the president." Ling Han. Yin Jun only felt his mind shake. He didn't hear a single word of what the guard said next. This person was Ling Han. He looked at Ling Han and said, "Are you Ling Han of the black-green flag?" This guy knew him? That's right. Ling Han nodded. Yin Jun immediately revealed a dense killing intent. This brat actually dared to steal his woman. The key was that he had chased after Lien Xuerong for a year or 2. But Lien Xuerong had always been cold and indifferent to him. But now, Lien Xuerong not only gave things to Ling Han, but also openly shielded him. Fuck. Yang Ziqing observed his expression and immediately said, "Brat, this isn't a place for you to behave atrociously. If you don't scram, I won't be polite to you." Ling Han glanced at him. "You still want to use force?" "I'm not using force. I'm just maintaining order," Yang Ziqing said coldly. Seeing Yang Ziqing jump out of his own accord, Yin Jun didn't say anything else. He wanted to kill Ling Han, but no matter how gutsy he was, he didn't dare to openly kill someone in the city. A country had its laws. If it wasn't a wanted criminal, but if it caused someone to be crippled or even killed, then he would have to pay a huge price. Therefore, if Yang Ziqing jumped out now, he was also happy to let the other be the vanguard and give Ling Han a taste of his strength. Of course, he would definitely think of a way to kill Ling Han next. He couldn't tolerate the woman he liked having another man in her heart. Scram! Yang Ziqing attacked, a slap flying towards Ling Han. He had 11 meridians. The power of this blow was vigorous, and the strong wind it stirred caused the 4 guards to tremble, almost falling down. Ling Han revealed an angry expression. Who did he offend? He could tell that Yin Jun had strong enmity towards him, and this Yang Ziqing was flattering the other. So he jumped out in a hurry. Did he think he was easy to bully? Ling Han also slapped over. Pa! The force that Yang Ziqing struck out was instantly disintegrated, and the power of Ling Han's attack was not dissipated, heavily slapping onto Yang Ziqing's face. Ah! Yang Ziqing let out a pained grunt, a bright red palm print instantly appearing on his face. He was dumbfounded. He had 11 meridians. To be able to casually slap him, then in the meridian opening realm, only 12 meridians could do this. This guy looks so young, but was actually a 12 meridians expert? He really couldn't believe it, otherwise he wouldn't have been so anxious to act. Chapter 3166. Ling Han, how dare you act so presumptuously in front of the Array Master Association? How dare you? Yin Jun opened his mouth and directly charged Ling Han with a crime. Ling Han looked at Yin Jun and said, "That's strange. I've never seen a tortoise like you before. Why are you biting me and not letting go?" He had just arrived at Hidden Tiger City and hadn't even activated the troublesome aura. Why was he being targeted? Fuck tortoise. Yin Jun revealed an angry expression. Was this brat mocking him? His woman had been stolen by the other party. If he wasn't a tortoise, then what was he? Wow, you clearly knew that Lin Shuerong was my woman, but you still dared to make a move. I can't kill you. You trespassed into our association, and even tried to commit murder. Do you know how serious your crime is? He said coldly. Ling Han laughed out loud. You can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. How would you know that I trespassed? There was just a mad dog that wanted to bite me, so I kicked it to stop it from committing murder. Yang Ziqing was stunned. Fuck, this guy actually called him a mad dog? Scram. Why would the president see a brute like you? Yin Jun waved his hand. It was impossible to kill Ling Han here. He could only humiliate him. Ling Han smiled faintly. Oh, so you can represent President Gu. Gu Tianhe was an advanced array master. Even the city lord had to treat him with respect. What virtue or ability did Yin Jun have to represent such a big shot? Yin Jun snorted. If any Tom, Dick, or Harry could pay respects to the president, then wouldn't the president be busy to death? I'm just screening for him. You're not worthy. It's none of your business whether I'm worthy or not. All I want is a notification, Ling Han said faintly. Country bumpkin scram. Yin Jun said disdainfully. He hoped that Ling Han would leave as soon as possible. Then, he would find out where Ling Han lived and hire an assassin to make Ling Han disappear forever. Haha, you think too much. Ling Han did not pay attention to him. He just stayed here and believed that Gu Tianhe would come out. At that time, he only needed to pass on Niu Huaqing's words. Then if Gu Tianhe wanted to see him, he could see him. If not, he would leave. It was a simple matter. Yin Jun sneered. Still not giving up? If Lord President is willing to see a country bumpkin like you, then the sun will definitely rise from the west. Ling Han couldn't be bothered with him. He didn't know this guy, and if he wanted to fight, he would accompany him. Seeing that Ling Han actually ignored him, Yin Jun could not help becoming even more furious. This kid is actually putting on airs? Is he deliberately provoking me? Damn it. Guards, hurry up and drive him out, he said coldly. He was a beginner-level array master, and had a bright future ahead of him. So the 4 guards were naturally very respectful towards him. When they heard his words, they all looked towards Ling Han. Please don't make things difficult for us, one of the guards said. Ling Han smiled. I have something to ask to see you. It's fine if you don't pass the message on my behalf, but you actually want to drive me away. I want to see how tyrannical the Array Association is. Oh, do you really want someone to pass the message on your behalf? Yin Jun revealed a cold smile. All right, I can help you inform Lord President. Did this guy eat the wrong medicine? Not to mention Ling Han's disbelief. Even the 4 guards and Yang Ziqing's faces were filled with confusion. What the hell was this? But, you have to crawl under my crotch first. Yin Jun spread his legs apart, full of disdain. If it were the large black dog, he would definitely agree first. Then, he would pretend as if he was going to drill into Yin Jun's body, and take the opportunity to use his underhanded hands and mouth to bite Yin Jun's little brother into pieces. However, Ling Han would not be so tasteless. He just looked at Yin Jun confused. How did he offend this guy? Although he had activated the hatred halo and the automatic taunting effect, this was too strange. He had just arrived and did not know many people, but he was actually treated with such hostility and hatred. Strange. But no matter what, his principle was very simple. Whoever offended him, he would beat them up. This Yin Jun was already on his blacklist. What's with all the ruckus? A solemn voice rang out from within the palace, filled with dignity. An old man walked out. Although he was rather skinny, his spirit was still hale and hearty. Lord President, Yin Jun, and the others hurriedly bowed when they saw him. Gu Tianhe, the president of the Array Association of Hidden Tiger City, an advanced array master. His identity was shocking, and his status was high. The main character was here. Ling Han hurriedly said, President Gu. I was asked by the owner of an array shop to pay a visit to President Gu. This kid, not only did he not bow when he saw Gu Tianhe, but he actually said such inappropriate words. Yang Ziqing and the others did not understand, but Yin Jun sneered. Very good. If he offended Gu Tianhe, no one could save him. Gu Tianhe was startled. What was going on? Master Niu actually sent someone to see him. How dare you be so impudent in front of the president? Are you courting death? Yin Jun grabbed the opportunity and shouted. Although he was a genius in the Array Association, he did not mind sucking up to Gu Tianhe. After all, his master was just a deacon, while Gu Tianhe was the president. They could not be mentioned in the same breath. Shut up. Unexpectedly, his bootlicking went against the horse's leg. Gu Tianhe's eyes were extremely sharp as he stared angrily at him. Yin Jun was stunned. What was going on? Little friend, follow me. Gu Tianhe waved at Ling Han. This was someone sent by Master Niu. Of course he could not ignore him. Others might not know, but how could he not know? Niu Huaqing was someone who stirred up a storm in the past. Unfortunately, fate made a fool out of him, causing that high-spirited array genius to become so dispirited. Therefore, since Master Niu sent someone to find him, it must be an extremely important matter. He turned around and left. This time, naturally no one dared to stop Ling Han. Since the president had spoken, who would be so blind? Ling Han glanced at Yin Jun, shook his head and said, President Gu, I cannot go in. Gu Tianhe turned around. Why? Someone said that if I want to go in, I have to crawl under his crotch. Ling Han said. Gu Tianhe immediately looked at Yin Jun, Yang Ziqing, and the others. Obviously, this was said by one of the 6. Yin Jun almost jumped. Why was this kid so vengeful? He hurriedly said, President, don't listen to his nonsense. I did not stop him from going in. I only said that if he wants to pass the message, he has to listen to me. His voice became softer and softer, because he had regained his senses. Ling Han purposely said something wrong to make him confess. How dare you? Gu Tianhe was furious. Is the Array Association opened by you? You can't let anyone in just because you don't want to. Yin Jun could only lower his head and let Gu Tianhe scold him. Ling Han. He gritted his teeth and clenched his fists tightly. End of chapter. Chapter 3168. Falling in Love with You. Divine Tao Alchemy Venerable's latest chapter. Yin Jun glanced at him and said indifferently, Then go spread the news and have Hell send out assassins. Yang Ziqing was shocked. Hell was an assassin organization and claimed that there was no one they could not kill. Not to mention ordinary people, even the higher-ups of the army, and the ministers of the dynasty would kill them as long as the price was right. But they only had a verbal conflict with Ling Han. And to be honest, they were the ones who started the fight. How did it escalate to the point of hiring an assassin organization? Could it be that there was a grudge he didn't know about? He didn't want to be the bird that stuck out. But he looked at Yin Jun. This was the most promising formation master in Hidden Tiger City. And Gu Tianhe would eventually die of old age. If he could build a good relationship with the future chairman of the Formation Association, then his position in the family would rise greatly, and he could even think about the position of the family head. Normally speaking, it was impossible for him to get this position. Okay, I'll go immediately. He gritted his teeth and decided to go all the way. Different from the ancient Dao sect, Xianbei country was a real country, and a big one at that. It occupied a lot of land, and not only did ancient martial arts flourish, but the technology from before the world changed had also started to flourish. Thus, there was not only an optical computer here, but also an internet connection. For example, an assassin organization like Hell had an online platform for people to place orders on. Of course, assassin organizations were the targets of the state, so these platforms were often banned. But they would always rise from the ashes and reappear under a different face. Yang Ziqing wrote down Ling Han's information on this platform, and soon, Hell gave him a reply. 200,000 Xianbei coins. To Yang Ziqing, this was a huge sum of money. The monthly salary he received from the family was only 10,000 Xianbei coins. Usually, he spent a lot of time drinking and spending on cultivation, so he didn't have much left. Some months, it wasn't even enough. Now he had to take out 200,000 at once. It was really hard for him. Is the money not enough? Yin Jun asked. Yes. Yang Ziqing gritted his teeth. He used the reserve money his parents gave him to pay. Soon Hell gave him a reply. There would be a result in 3 days. Young Master Jun, it's done. Yang Zi said. Although the cost was huge, and he also took a huge risk, he still managed to get on Yin Jun. After this incident, he should have obtained Yin Jun's absolute trust. Yin Jun nodded with a trace of indifference in his eyes. From the beginning to the end, he only moved his lips. If they found out that it was Yang Ziqing who did it, he would push the blame away and let Yang Ziqing bear all the responsibility. After Ling Han returned home, he set up the psychedelic array in the courtyard. Because the place he lived in was very small, such a psychedelic array was enough to cover the entire courtyard. Ling Han taught Huanxue how to get in and out of the array, so that she wouldn't be trapped inside. If no one stepped in, this psychedelic array would not be activated. The array base buried underground would also not be seen by others. It was very well hidden. Once someone stepped in, unless they were also proficient in this psychedelic array, they would be trapped to the point where they couldn't even see their own fingers. Of course, this could only trap Meridian Opening Realm cultivators. If Blood Transformation Realm cultivators attacked with all their strength, the power would be too great, and the connection between the array bases would be destroyed. Then the array base would fall apart, and the psychedelic array would naturally cease to exist. This was Ling Han's insurance. After all, he was different from before. He needed to rest at night, and when people were resting, they couldn't possibly maintain a state of high vigilance. Although he had just arrived, he had a halo of hatred. Just look at that. Yin Jun targeted him for no reason, and harbored deep killing intent towards him. Of course he had to be more careful. It was time to study Pil Dao. The new psychic array required intermediate-level telekinesis power. This wasn't something that could be accomplished in one go. So Ling Han placed his attention on Pil Dao. In truth, his original intention of learning psychedelic array was to refine pills. Let's use the photon computer first. There's a complete internet platform here. I can search for more information. He used the photon computer to search, and found that whether it was Pil Dao or Array Dao, there was very little information on the basics. On the internet, there were many platforms that sold things. Even if it was for food or clothing, one could place an order on these platforms. As long as the money was paid, the items would be delivered very quickly. It didn't matter if it was across cities. There were large platforms in every city. Pil Dao, Pil Dao, Pil Dao. Ling Han found a specialized platform, This was opened by the Pill Dao Association and only sold pills. There's really a lot of things. Secret energy pill. It can quickly raise one's cultivation level. Meridian probing pill. It can increase the chances of sensing meridians by about 10%. No wonder there are so many people with 9 meridians and above. With this kind of pill, it's enough to let half of them cross over. But it's really expensive. Ling Han took a look. Each secret energy pill was sold for 2,000 xianbei dollars. Even the leaders of the black-green flag couldn't buy more than a few in a month. The key was that the secret energy pill could be taken every day. No wonder there are many 20-year-old 12 meridians in the city. But in the black-green flag, they need to be around 30 years old. Moreover, they have to be at the level of the leaders. I've lost at the starting line. Ling Han touched his pocket. He had just become a Dao child in the ancient Dao sect, and didn't have much savings. Therefore, he only had around 100,000 xianbei dollars. It seemed like a lot, but it wasn't enough to buy a few secret energy pills. So I have to master the refining method. In the future, when Luan Xing and the others come out, they will need it. However, this platform didn't sell pill recipes. Ling Han had no choice but to change. He quickly found a platform that was similar to a black market. Everything was sold here. But to avoid taboos, the sellers would disguise the names of the products. For example, the secret energy pills recipe was named Secret Recipe to increase your strength. Those who knew would be able to understand it at a glance. Ling Han haggled with the seller and finally made a deal for 5,000 xianbei dollars. This was actually not expensive, because after Ling Han learned it, he would also be able to sell the pill recipe on the platform. However, all the sellers seemed to have agreed that 5,000 would be the lowest price, and no one was willing to lower the price any further. This kind of transaction was the easiest to complete. After paying, the platform sent the recipe over. Ling Han carefully looked at it. I don't need a lot of materials. Check the price. The cost is around 500 xianbei dollars. If the furnace doesn't explode, then the number of pills will be around 3 to 5. Sigh, the Alchemy Association is really profitable. The Alchemy Association is actually selling one for 2,000. But this is also good. I can make money from alchemy. Reading a refreshing novel is enough. Chapter 3169. Ling Han was happy. He could finally go back to his old profession. He actually liked alchemy very much, but this world valued strength too much, so he had to put more energy into practicing martial arts. Otherwise, if he didn't have enough strength, he wouldn't even know if he could survive, let alone freely refining alchemy. I still need a set of formation called the 7-star formation. Forget it, I'll go buy it from the store. Ling Han immediately acted. He first went to the medicine store to gather all the raw materials for alchemy. He had a net worth of 100,000, so he was very rich. He bought 100 sets of raw materials in one go, and even needed a car from the store to help him send them back. The task of following the car was handed over to Summon Snow, and Ling Han went to a formation shop. Senior Niu, Ling Han called out. Since he knew Niu Huaqing's identity, he had to be more respectful. That brat actually revealed the old man's identity. Niu Huaqing was very dissatisfied. This brat was of course Gu Tianhe. How pitiful. He was the leader of a guild, and his authority was no less than the city lord's. Ling Han shook his head in his heart. You sent me over like this, and you didn't specifically inform me. Gu Tianhe would definitely inadvertently reveal the secret. Could it be that he asked Ling Han what the old man had sent him here for? Wasn't he afraid of being cut? He just laughed and said, Senior, do you have a 7-star formation for sale here? Hey, why do you want a 7-star formation? Niu Huaqing was very curious. This is used by alchemists to refine pills. If you wanted a 7-star formation, the old man wouldn't find it strange. But now you want a finished 7-star formation. I plan to refine pills, said Ling Han. Puffed. Niu Qinghua immediately spurted out. He looked at Ling Han, and then laughed loudly. Of course he found it funny. Alchemists also needed to learn formations, but most alchemists didn't need to know how to refine their own formation base. They only needed to be able to activate the formation, and this only required spiritual power. Do you think you can refine pills just because you know formations? What a joke. Ling Han also laughed. Senior, do you not believe that I can refine pills? I don't believe it. I definitely don't believe it. Niu Huaqing shook his head. Out of 10,000 array masters, there might be one with extraordinary talent who could also refine pills. But how many array masters were there in Xianbei country? Therefore, this was completely impossible. Do you want to make a bet? Ling Han asked with a wicked smile. If the large black dog was present, he would immediately be able to tell that Ling Han was trying to scam him. Niu Huaqing rolled his eyes and said, sure. If I can concoct pills, then senior, the formation here should be open to me. I can learn whatever I want, Ling Han said. For Niu Huaqing, this was no actual loss, but for Ling Han, it was a huge gain. Sure. Niu Huaqing smiled. If you lose, the old man wants you to put all your effort into array Dao. After you go to the imperial capital, you must become the #1 array master within 10 years. This seems to be for Ling Han's own good. Ling Han nodded and said, all right, deal. He couldn't put all his effort into the formation, but he wouldn't lose at all. Niu Huaqing looked around and gave Ling Han a 7-star formation. This was a basic formation, but it was more advanced than the ternary formation. It needed mental power to activate, and in the process of pill concoction, it needed to control the intensity of the energy. Therefore, it was impossible for two people to divide the work, one refining pills, and the other controlling the formation, unless the two were mentally connected. There were two sisters in the imperial capital. One was a formation master, the other was an alchemist. They were mentally connected and could work together to concoct pills. They had been famous for a while a few years ago. Ling Han first familiarized himself with the formation. This didn't need much time, and he quickly grasped it. The important thing was how to control the energy waves when concocting pills. There couldn't be any mistakes at any point, or it would affect the quantity and quality of the pills formed. It could even cause the furnace to explode, and all would be for naught. After preparing for half a day, Ling Han began to concoct pills. He activated the formation, and then threw in all kinds of ingredients with practiced ease. The formation triggered the power of heaven and earth, which transformed into some kind of mysterious power. The ingredients that were thrown in seemed to be held by an invisible hand, and didn't fall to the ground. Instead, they floated in the air. Damn, could this kid really be a genius in both alchemy and array? Looking at Ling Han's practice technique, Niu Huaqing wasn't sure. This level of proficiency and confidence definitely couldn't have been formed all of a sudden. But this kid wasn't even 20 years old. Where did he find so much time to practice alchemy? Moreover, this guy was quite accomplished in arrays. Wait, it seemed like this guy had only been practicing arrays for a few months. Thinking about this, Niu Huaqing's lips couldn't help but twitch. Did he really meet a monster? To Ling Han, concocting a pill like the secret power pill was too easy. Whether it was the technique or the changes in the control of energy, it wasn't complicated at all. It only took him 2 hours to complete the concoction. That was a piece of cake. He was the emperor of alchemy. Even though this was his first time concocting, Ling Han was still very relaxed. This posture, this calmness, would make the old alchemist hold his head in shock and exclaim in disbelief. Of course, he had concocted pills in the Yuan world for God knows how many years. Who could compare? 2 hours later, Ling Han finished his work. 4 green-colored alchemical pills were currently spinning in the middle of the array, emitting a slightly sweet and bitter smell. He reached out, grabbed the pills, and stopped the operation of the formation. The longer the formation operated, the more times it was used, the more wear and tear it would cause to the foundation of the formation. You really succeeded, Niu Huaqing said in shock. Even though he had guessed from Ling Han's posture that this guy might have succeeded, Ling Han smiled and handed over the pills, saying, Senior, please appreciate it. No need, this old man is really convinced. There's actually such a genius in this world, proficient in both array and alchemy. Niu Huaqing sighed and threw a key to Ling Han. In the future, you can come here as you like. Thank you, Senior. Ling Han put away the key. Since he had already started, he might as well make a few more batches. Ling Han reactivated the array formation and continued to refine pills. 2 furnaces, 3 furnaces, 4 furnaces. He refined 7 furnaces in one go before he stopped. He was exhausted. Alchemy required him to control the array, and controlling the array required him to use his mind power. His mental strength was now almost exhausted, and he only felt a headache. This was the result of overuse. No, I have to go back to sleep. Ling Han bid farewell to Niu Huaqing and returned home. Damn, is this kid really a monster? Niu Huaqing muttered. Although he was a formation master, he didn't lack an understanding of alchemy. This old man remembers that most alchemists can only refine 2 or 3 batches in a row. This kid actually refined 7 furnaces in one go. In terms of mental strength, he is only at the beginner level, so his mental strength can't be too strong. There's only one possibility. His use of telekinesis has reached an incomparably exquisite level, without a single bit of wastage. Hiss, this old man has really picked up a treasure. Chapter 3170. Ling Han returned to his residence and took a secret power pill. After refining it, he fell asleep. He was too tired. Summon Snow had also consumed a secret power pill and was currently cultivating to refine it. She had already been taught the heaven and earth art. With the help of the art and the spirit gathering formation, her progress was maintained at a shocking speed. She was now at 6 meridians. This was mainly because the heaven and earth art didn't have a high degree of refinement of secret power, unlike Ling Han. After refining the power extracted from the spirit gathering formation, it didn't even reach a third of his normal cultivation. It was too useless. However, Call Snow's fast progress was also because her combat power was insufficient. She was only comparable to an ordinary 6 meridians. This was actually good enough. The little maidservant was cultivating. Because Ling Han came back very late, it was already past 3 in the morning when she absorbed all the power of the secret power pill. She yawned and was about to go rest when she suddenly realized that the formation in the courtyard was activated. She was a bit naive. She was stunned at first and thought about it with her head tilted. Then her expression changed. Someone broke in. Otherwise, why would the formation be activated? Was it a thief? Call Snow's first reaction was to wake Ling Han up. However, when she thought of the young master's tired face when he came back, she immediately dispelled the idea. Instead, she took out her sword and said to herself, I can't disturb the young master's rest. I'll let Call Snow guard the young master. She emphasized it a few times to boost her confidence. Then, she walked into the courtyard with her sword. Her movements weren't small and made some noise. However, she didn't have to worry about being heard by the people in the formation. After entering the formation, the brain would be deceived. They would hear and see inexplicable things. Then it would be like a ghost walking on a wall. They wouldn't be able to walk out. From the outside, the area covered by the formation was actually very small. They would be able to walk out after taking a few steps. With Ling Han's help, added with the fact that Summon Snow herself had also cultivated spiritual power, she was naturally able to control this formation. That hallucinatory effect no longer had any effect on her. She could clearly see that there were 2 black-robed men inside the formation. Their faces and heads were covered, and they held shining swords in their hands. Not a thief. Summon Snow wasn't stupid. She was just a little silly. She immediately realized that thieves didn't need weapons, only robbers did. But this was Crouching Tiger City. Where had the bandits come from? Therefore, there was only one possibility left. They were here to kill Ling Han. Tried to kill his young master. Summon Snow was instantly filled with a strong desire to fight. She was originally a little afraid, but now she didn't feel anything at all, only incomparable anger. Someone actually wanted to harm her young master. Death as she approached, she thrust her sword out. Under the effects of the psychedelic array, the 2 masked men's senses were clouded. They didn't sense anyone approaching them at all. And they even took out their swords. Needless to say, these 2 were assassins sent by hell. However, assassins were assassins after all. They had an instinctive sense for killing intent. When Snowcaller's sword was about to reach them, one of the masked men immediately reacted and hastily dodged. But it was still too late. The tip of the sword slashed across, leaving a deep wound on his waist. Oh, That person let out a cry of surprise. But beside him, his companion acted as if he didn't see or hear anything. It seemed incomparably strange. Summon Snow's hand trembled slightly, and her face was also a little pale. This wasn't the first time she fought, but it was the first time she held the thought of killing someone. There was blood on the sword, and it emitted a fishy smell. It made her want to vomit, but when she thought of Ling Han, she immediately firmed her conviction. Whoever wanted to harm Summon Snow's young master had to step over Summon Snow's corpse first, she thought. Her conviction was firm, and she struck again. This time, she was a different person. Moreover, her hand was even steadier. Her sword stabbed out fast, accurate and ruthless, directly at that person's back. That person was completely unprepared. When the long sword attacked him, he suddenly came to his senses. It was already too late for him to dodge, so he could only roar loudly and swing his sword behind him. However, he was affected by the array. He clearly wanted to strike behind him, but in the end he stabbed to the left. Unfortunately, his companion was in this position. His companion had been ambushed earlier, and he was incomparably fearful. Thus, when this sword attacked him, his reaction was extremely fast, and he promptly struck out with his sword, wanting to block this attack. However, the array affected Divine Sense. He felt that this sword was parried, but the reality was otherwise. Pu. The other assassin's eyes widened, and he lowered his head to look at his chest. There was a sword tip sticking out, and another sword had pierced through his chest. He recognized this sword. It was his companion's. Fuck. Such a thought flashed through his mind, and his head tilted to the side. A dead person wouldn't be affected by the array. He fell towards his companion, and just happened to fall at his companion's feet. The remaining assassin was also startled, but when he finally saw his companion's corpse, he couldn't help but turn pale. He had encountered an expert. First, he was almost struck by a sword, and then his companion was silently stabbed to death. Obviously, the opponent's strength far surpassed what was described in the information. He had been tricked. Retreat. He grabbed his companion's corpse, and then threw out a secret treasure. This was a silver shuttle. After he activated it, it emitted a silver light that enveloped him, and then sank into the ground. Shio, it was gone. The array lost a living person, and immediately stopped operating. Ran away. Call Snow held her sword, somewhat dissatisfied that one of them had actually run away. However, in the next instant, she immediately remembered that she had killed someone, and her hand couldn't help but tremble. Ding! The longsword fell to the ground, and she bent over to the side, violently vomiting. After a while she finally calmed down. I don't regret it. Even if I had to do it again, not only would I kill someone, but I also wouldn't let the other person escape. Everything I have is given to me by young master, and I want to protect young master. The little maid thought to herself with incomparable determination. Chapter 3172. You bastard, if I don't kill you today, I'm not Pan Hu, the young man said, pointing at Ling Han's nose. Young master Hu, calm down. Another shop assistant jogged over. He's not our shop assistant, he's a customer. Pan Hu snorted and said, so what if he's a customer? He can just tell me to scram. The new shop assistant was so anxious that he was about to sweat. Of course, peace was the most important thing in business. If there was a scandal that their compassionate heart medicine hall bullied a customer, how could they do business in the future? But this Pan Hu was the nephew of their boss. How could he dare to offend him? What are you waiting for? Hurry up and kick him out. Pan Hu said coldly. He looked at Ling Han and said, with me here, don't even think about buying anything. Customer. The new shop assistant looked at Ling Han awkwardly. If he didn't kick him out, he would definitely be fired later. All right. Ling Han nodded and turned to leave. He walked slowly and said, but don't regret it. You're smart. Otherwise I'll make you suffer. Pan Hu said fiercely to Ling Han's back. He actually dared to threaten him. He didn't know what he was talking about. Tung tung tung. Someone came down from the second floor. Pan Hu turned around and immediately put away his arrogant expression. He went up and greeted, Uncle. Two people came down from upstairs. The one in front was a middle-aged man, who was nearly 50 years old. Ordinary people's lifespan was about 150 years old, so people under 70 years old could be called middle-aged. He was the boss of Compassionate Heart Medicine Hall Guahao. He was quite a respected person in Hidden Tiger City. The other person was the shop assistant who had gone up earlier. He followed behind Guahao. The reason why Pan, who could be so majestic, was obviously because of Guahao. So in front of Guahao, he turned from a tiger to a cat, and could only do his best to please him. Guahao just nodded slightly. He had never liked this nephew, but he was the son of his sister-in-law. For the sake of his wife, he had to tolerate him. He frowned and asked, "Where's that customer?" "What customer?" Pan, whose heart skipped a beat. Could it be that Guahao had specifically come downstairs to see the brat just now? No. How is that possible? Not only was his uncle the owner of the Benevolent Heart Medicinal Hall, he was also a middle-rank alchemist. How could he possibly lower himself to personally meet a minor character? He was thinking too much. He must be thinking too much. Guahao looked at the other employee and frowned. Immediately, he emitted a suffocating pressure. "I'm asking you a question." Another waiter shivered and hurriedly said, "Boss, the customer you're talking about, is he a young man who is wearing a green suit and looks to be less than 20 years old?" Guahao turned around and looked at the waiter who had just gone upstairs. "That's him." The waiter nodded. Pan, whose mind went blank. What was going on? Guahao actually wanted to see that kid? A strong sense of foreboding rose in his heart. "Where is he?" Guahao asked again. He was so excited that someone had actually improved the formula of the secret power pill, which made his scalp tingle until now. He left," the other waiter said. "Why would he leave?" Guahao revealed a dignified expression. The other party had obviously come to sell alchemical pills, and he had even given him a completed pill, showing his incomparable sincerity. If nothing major had happened, why would the other party suddenly leave in such a hurry? "Uncle, that person was too arrogant. He was picky the moment he came in. I tried to reason with him, but he was still unconvinced and wanted to beat me up. In the end, I chased him out," Pan, who hurriedly said. He knew that this matter could not be concealed, so he might as well say it first. At least he could distort the truth a little. Guahao's face darkened. How could he not understand this nephew of his? He was full of nonsense and could not be trusted at all. The other party had come to sell medicine, and it was an improved version of the secret power pill. It would not be an exaggeration to say that as long as Ling Han released the news, all the medicine shops in the Hidden Tiger City would be happy to cooperate with him. Picking and choosing, talking nonsense. "You go and invite that person back for me." Guahao suppressed his anger and said. Usually, he would let this fellow do as he pleased, but not today. He must teach him a good lesson. If you can't invite him back, you don't need to step into this place or the Mo family ever again. Pan, who could not help but pull a long face. How had he treated Ling Han just now? Now that he had to invite him back, he could imagine what kind of expression Ling Han would give him. He had always been arrogant. How could he bear to lower his voice and beg for help? But the problem was, if he did not invite Ling Han back, then Guahao would clearly not recognize him as his nephew. Then, if he lost the Mo family's reputation, he would be nothing. He thought about it, and felt that the only way out was to lower his head. If he were to be stubborn at this time, then he would be finished in the future. "Don't worry, uncle. I will definitely complete the task," Pan, who said, and hurriedly chased out the door. He ran all the way and soon saw Ling Han. "You!" He chased after him. "Come back with me, my uncle wants to see you." He still maintained his high and mighty attitude, hoping to scare Ling Han. Ling Han stopped and said, "If you say so, then I'll see him." "It's your fortune that my uncle is willing to see you," Pan, who said. "Do you know who my uncle is?" "Pill Master Guahao. The people who ask him to refine pills can form a long line. What else do you have to be dissatisfied with?" "Scram!" Ling Han waved his hand. "A good dog doesn't block the way. Scram to the side." "Brat, don't be so shameless," Pan, who said sternly. Ling Han smiled faintly. With his eyesight, he could naturally see that Pan, who was already putting on a strong front. But even if Pan, whose attitude was really tough, It didn't matter. He would beat him up until he became a sick cat. With the improved version of the secret power pill in his hands, would he be afraid that no medicine store would accept it? He walked with large strides, completely ignoring Pan Hu. Pan Hu gritted his teeth and hurriedly chased after him. What do I have to do for you to leave with me? It was still the same attitude. Ling Han chuckled and continued walking. Pan Hu broke out in a cold sweat. If he couldn't invite Ling Han back today, then he would be chased out of the family by Mo Guahao. Once he lost the Mo family's reputation, he would be no different from the ruffians on the streets. Thinking that he might become the person he usually looked down on, he had nothing to worry about. In a flash, he rushed in front of Ling Han and knelt down with a thud. I beg you, come back with me. Ling Han looked at him calmly, putting aside the fact that he was once a sovereign. Now that he had restarted the Tao of Alchemy, he could still become an influential figure. Would he care about such a small fry kneeling to him? It wasn't that easy. He continued walking. Master, I was wrong. I was wrong. Pan Hu repeatedly kowtowed behind him. Chapter 3173. Only then did Ling Han stop, but he didn't look back. Pan Hu saw that there was hope, so he quickly continued to kowtow, not daring to stop. At first his face was burning. He had to kneel down in the street. How humiliating was that? But he was not a big shot. How many people knew him? Now that everyone was watching, they might forget about him in a few days. To a person like him, face was important, but compared to actual benefits, it was insignificant. Please forgive me. I was wrong. I really need to know. He kowtowed until his scalp was broken, and the blood was dripping down his cheek. It was an indescribable misery. What did you do wrong? Ling Han turned around and asked. I shouldn't have been so blind. I shouldn't have been so arrogant. I shouldn't have looked down on others. Pan Hu kept reflecting on himself, describing himself as the most shameless and morally corrupt person in the world. Ling Han just wanted to punish this person. He still wanted to do business with Mercy Medicine Hall. After all, it was the largest medicine hall in Hidden Tiger City, and its sales were also the best. Therefore, seeing Pan Hu's tears and snot, he felt that it was time to stop. Alright, get up, he said. Thank you, sir. Pan Hu carefully got up. People like him bullied the weak and feared the strong. Once he was suppressed, he was like a dog. He jogged over and said, Sir, my uncle wants to see you. Lead the way, Ling Han said. Business was more important. Okay. Pan Hu answered and quickly walked in front. Soon they returned to Mercy Medicine Hall. I'm Mo Guahao. As soon as they entered, Mo Guahao came out to greet them. He smiled and stretched out his hands to Ling Han, looking very enthusiastic. Sorry for the neglect just now. I'll definitely punish this kid. Ling Han. Ling Han reached out and shook hands with him. In the Yuan world, people usually saluted with hands in front. But here, they seemed to like to shake hands. He smiled. Who doesn't make mistakes? Just change. Is he pleading on my behalf? Pan Hu couldn't help but feel excited. He even wanted to cry. Ling Han actually interceded for him, even after he had treated him so badly. Little friend Ling is really broad-minded. Mo Guahao laughed loudly. Come, please come upstairs. Please. The two of them went upstairs. Of course, the other employees didn't dare to follow. Pan Hu thought for a moment, then shamelessly went up to the second floor. Mo Guahao only glanced at Pan Hu and did not drive him away, which made Pan Hu feel relieved. Go pour 2 cups of tea over. Mo Guahao instructed Pan Hu after asking Ling Han to sit down. Yes. Pan Hu hurriedly left. Little friend, how many of these medicinal pills do you have? Mo Guahao asked, pointing at the bottle on the table. It was the one that Ling Han had asked the waiter to bring up. With his abilities as a middle-rank alchemist, he would naturally be able to immediately determine what improvements there were in this new type of mystic power pill. Therefore, he immediately rushed down excitedly. Ling Han smiled. 10 pills a day is not a problem. 10 pills? Mo Guahao was shocked. He wasn't shocked at the large number, but at being able to provide 10 pills a day so steadily. Could it be that this was refined by little friend? He asked. Otherwise, how could there be such a guarantee? Ling Han smiled. That's right. Formation master and alchemist were both symbols of status and synonymous with safety. He had just arrived, so he needed some protection. Mo Guahao couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Such a young alchemist. To become a low-rank alchemist, one had to be able to refine at least 10 kinds of low-rank medicinal pills. And among them, at least one needed to use mental power to activate the formation. In the process of refining, mental power was also needed to control the flow of energy in the formation. Therefore, at the beginning, the requirement for mental power was very high, and it needed to be at the beginner level. However, after that, alchemy didn't have too high of a requirement for mental power. It just needed to be extremely meticulous, which was another direction of development. However, to reach beginner mental power, geniuses needed to be around 24 or 25 years old. Normal people needed to be over 30. To refine mystic power pills, beginner mental power was definitely needed. In other words, this young man in front of him had such conditions. It was too shocking. Little friend, you really are shocking. He was extremely emotional. One had to know that he had cultivated beginner mental power when he was 24 years old, which was already called a super genius. However, compared to Ling Han, Ling Han only smiled. He had always been very modest and was not arrogant. I wonder if little friend is willing to sell the improved mystic power pill recipe? Mo Guahao's eyes shone. Although mystic power pills could only be used in the opening pulse realm, which was too low for the entire level of martial art, it was precisely because it was the lowest level that it had the widest market. If he could grasp this recipe and vigorously promote the new version of mystic power pills, not only could he obtain great wealth, he could also leave his name in history. The strength of the entire country's army would increase a lot, because the number of soldiers at the lowest level would definitely be the most. Ling Han shook his head. Not interested. Mo Guahao couldn't help but be disappointed, but this was also within his expectations. If he could think of all this, could Ling Han not think of it? Only a fool would be able to accomplish what all alchemists wanted to do but failed to do. In reality, he was really wrong. Ling Han wouldn't care about this kind of low-level pill recipe, but he still needed to rely on the improved version of mystic power pills to earn money. Of course, he would only be able to push the price up by being the only supplier. When he learned more pill recipes, such as those that could raise the cultivation level of the blood-changing realm, he could improve them, and naturally wouldn't need to rely on mystic power pills to earn money. At that time, he could sell the pill recipe. 10 pills a day. Mo Guahao settled for the next best thing. With the addition of the improved version of mystic power pills, the position of the leader of Cixin Medicine Hall would be unshakable. Otherwise, Shiyun Medicine Hall and Dakong Medicine Hall wouldn't be much worse than Cixin Medicine Hall, and could surpass them at any time. Ling Han nodded. I'll give you an address. Just send someone to pick it up every evening. Okay. Mo Guahao nodded. Ling Han took out another bottle, which was much larger. There were 9 mystic power pills in it, and he put it on the table. What's the price? He asked. This was naturally the most important question. Normal mystic power pills are sold for 2,000 each. This improved version has more than double the effect. The meaning is definitely not as simple as doubling the price. So I've decided to set the price at 5,000. Mo Guahao looked at Ling Han. Ling Han nodded. What about the share? You take 4,000, Mo Guahao said. This share was really generous. Chapter 3174. Mo Guahao was a pill refiner, but at the same time, he was also a businessman. In business, of course, he hoped to earn more money. However, he knew that if Ling Han sent this improved version of the secret power pill to other pharmacies, it would cause the traffic of other pharmacies to skyrocket. The total number of people buying medicine was fixed, and the skyrocketing of other shops would, of course, reduce the number of customers in Compassionate Heart Medicine Hall. Therefore, this must be considered. Moreover, although Compassionate Heart Medicine Hall and other pill refiners had a sales ratio of 3-to-1, ordinary secret power pills were only sold for 2,000 xianbei coins each. In other words, Compassionate Heart Medicine Hall could only earn 500 xianbei coins for each pill sold. In this way, Although Compassionate Heart Medicine Hall was at a disadvantage in terms of the ratio, it actually earned quite a lot. Moreover, it could also increase the traffic and drive the sales of other pills. How profitable was this? Therefore, Mo Guihao was not stupid at all. Ling Han chuckled. To him, the success rate was naturally 100%. Each furnace would be an average of 4 pills. Then, with a cost of 500, he could earn 16,000. Naturally, it was a huge profit. Okay. He nodded. Seeing that Ling Han agreed, Mo Guihao could not help but become more enthusiastic, because Ling Han had become his incomparably important business partner. Seeing that Mo Guihao valued Ling Han so much, Pan Hu could not help but feel lucky. If he could not get Ling Han back, he did not know how badly he would be scolded by Mo Guihao now. Boss Missouri, are there any pill recipes for sale here? Ling Han asked. He could not always find pill recipes on the internet, because higher-grade pills would not be sold there. Mo Guihao was surprised. You still have spare energy to study other pill recipes? As he saw it, Ling Han had to provide 10 alchemical pills every day, so he would at least have to successfully concoct 3 batches of pills. But which low-level alchemist could guarantee a 100% success rate in concocting pills? Then this alchemist would definitely earn a lot of money. Generally speaking, it was already very impressive to achieve a success rate of 30%. Therefore, Ling Han had to refine about 10 furnaces of pills a day. He almost did not even have time to sleep. How could he have time to study new pill recipes? However, since Ling Han had asked so, Mo Guihao took out his optical computer. These are the pill recipes I've collected. Which one do you want? I'll give it to you. Pill recipes were the same as martial techniques. They were both incomparably precious. Therefore, when Mo Guihao said this, he really did Ling Han a great favor. Ling Han nodded and said, Thank you, Boss Missouri. He looked. Mo Guihao had collected more than 100 pill formulas, which were divided into 3 major categories: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. For the beginner category, the most practical ones were the pulse-probing pill and the secret power pill. Ling Han had only gotten the formula for the secret power pill, but not the pulse-probing pill. So he said, I'll learn the pulse-probing pill first. Mo Guihao was surprised. From Ling Han's tone, it seemed that learning this meridian-probing pill wasn't enough, and he still wanted to learn other pill formulas in the future. Do you really have that much time? The specific pill recipe is on the optical computer. You'll know once you open it, he said. In his heart, he felt that Ling Han was young and full of vigor. That was why he wanted to learn everything. He felt too good about himself. However, after hitting a few walls, his mentality would adjust. Ling Han looked carefully, and very soon, he had memorized all the ingredients and concoction methods of the vein-probing pill. He went through them in his mind. The only difference between the concoction methods of this world and that of the origin world was that one used fire, while the other used a formation to draw in energy. Putting aside this point, whether it was the pulse-probing pill or the secret power pill, the difficulty of refining them was child's play. Ling Han dared to guarantee that even if he started refining now, he would be able to easily refine the pulse-probing pill and guarantee success on the first try. The Pill Dao Emperor was just that confident. Then I'll take my leave first, Ling Han said. He had already completely grasped the pulse-probing pill. The next question was whether he could improve the pill formula to increase the success rate of the pulse-probing pill. I'll send you down. Mo Guihao accompanied Ling Han downstairs. He asked the cashier to bring 40,000 xianbei coins to Ling Han. This was used to pay for the 10 improved secret power pills. Ling Han didn't stand on ceremony. Anyway, Mo Guihao wouldn't lose out. The only difference was how much he earned. Uncle, I'll send young Master Han back, Pan Hu suddenly said. Mo Guihao was surprised. When did this nephew of his become sensible? He naturally hoped to have a good relationship with Ling Han, but he was much older, so it was difficult for them to have a common topic. It was not as convenient as Pan Hu. However, he was worried that Pan Hu would mess up the matter, and then a good thing would turn into a bad thing. You have to be careful, he warned. I understand, Pan Hu said. Pan Hu said, since his uncle thought so highly of Ling Han, he would naturally treat Ling Han as if he was his uncle. No, he would be even more respectful, because this was equivalent to flattering both of them at once. Young friend Ling, let Huzi send you off, Mo Guohao said with a smile. You're both youngsters, so you should have a common topic. Ling Han thought that he had lived in the origin world for who knew how many years, and was definitely an old monster. Who here would have a common topic with him? However, he didn't mind, so he nodded. Young Master Han, please, Pan Hu said respectfully. His humble attitude was inconceivable to the workers in the shop. When did that second-generation rich kid become another person? The two of them walked out. Along the way, Pan Hu picked out some funny things to share with Ling Han. He was an ignorant and incompetent person. The so-called funny things were all related to women, which made Ling Han show an expression of impatience very quickly. In terms of reading people's expressions, Pan Hu was rather perceptive. He hurriedly shut his mouth and thought. Could it be that this young Master Han doesn't like women? If he didn't like women, then he liked men? Should he sell his chrysanthemum to curry favor with Ling Han? Forget it, the sacrifice was too great. At least, there was no need for that now. They hailed a cab and returned to Ling Han's residence. Of course, there was no need for Ling Han to pay. Pan Hu rushed to pay for the cab, and even wanted to enter the house to continue chatting with Ling Han. In the end, however, he was politely rejected by Ling Han. Pan Hu, on the other hand, was not too disappointed. After all, he had just offended Ling Han, and it was already not easy for him to repair his relationship to this extent. How could he hope to become Ling Han's best friend so quickly? He decided that from tomorrow onwards, he would be the one collecting the medicine. This way, he could communicate with Ling Han every day. TSK, he was really too smart. After standing outside Ling Han's residence for a while, he hailed a taxi and returned. Once Ling Han returned to his residence, he started to concoct the pulse-exploring pill. He had a strong interest in concocting pills. As expected, after only 2 hours, he successfully concocted the first batch of pulse-exploring pill. With the help of the God's Stone and his talent in alchemy, it wasn't strange to succeed on the first try. Ling Han tasted one pill and savored it carefully. After a while, he smiled and mumbled, I can increase the effect to 20%. Chapter 3176. In 3 days, Ling Han had refined a total of 29 batches of improved pulse-probing pills, almost exhausting him to death. Ever since he had achieved success in his cultivation, he had never been so tired from refining pills. However, he was also very satisfied, because he now had about 90 pulse-probing pills in his hands, which could probably bring him millions in income. It was really too easy for an alchemist to earn money, and even a formation master couldn't compare. Because everyone in the compassionate medicinal hall was very busy today. Even Pan Hu, the spoiled brat, had to entertain the hedonistic young masters. Thus, he didn't come to pick up Ling Han. Ling Han didn't mind. It wasn't like he didn't have arms and legs, so why couldn't he go by himself? He brought along the little servant girl, called for a car, and soon arrived at the compassionate medicinal hall. Oh my! He looked through the window and couldn't help but grimace. There were really a lot of people today. The entrance was filled with cars, and people kept getting out. It should be known that this was only the people getting out of the cars. After getting out, the cars would naturally leave, but even so, there was still such a large scale. It was really a little exaggerated. Speaking of which, was the attraction of the pulse-probing pill really that great? After a while, the car slowly drove to the entrance, but before it could stop, it saw a car suddenly cut in from behind and stopped in front of them. The car that Ling Han was in had to stop and wait for the people in the car in front to get out and drive away. Only then could his car continue forward. Cut in line, no cut in line. Ling Han was instantly enraged. Everyone was lining up obediently, but you didn't follow the rules. Beep, beep, beep. The driver of Ling Han's car honked. He was also very displeased. A man and a woman got out of the car in front. They were both very young. The man looked like the kind whose eyes grew on his forehead, while the woman was gorgeously dressed and extremely flirtatious. After the man got out of the car, he walked over and gave Ling Han's car a kick. Pa! The headlight was instantly crushed by him. Motherfucker. What the fuck are you honking for? Are you trying to kill me? The man cursed as he went to kick the other headlight. The driver quickly got out of the car and said, "Why did you smash my car?" "So what?" The man was very arrogant. He pointed at the driver and said, "Do you know who I am? Fuck, you dare to point at my nose? I think you're tired of living." He raised his hand and was about to hit the driver, scaring the driver into hiding in the car. The man was still cursing, and the coquettish woman beside him was also full of arrogance as she said, "You dare to make our young master Ming angry? You're really courting death." The car in front drove away, but the man was still not appeased and kept on kicking Ling Han's car. When Ling Han got out of the car, Huan Shui hurriedly opened the door and got out as well. She stood beside Ling Han. "Hey, there's actually someone who dares to come down." The man looked at Ling Han, but he quickly turned his gaze away and stared at Huan Shui. "Hey, I didn't expect there to be a little beauty here." Summon Snow couldn't be considered an absolute beauty, but she was above average. Ling Han waved his hand and said, "Come here." The man was stunned, and then he laughed and said, "You idiot, you dare to call me over? Who are you? Do you think you're the city lord?" However, even though he said that, he really walked over and said, "What, you still dare to hit me?" He moved half his face over and said, "Come on, why don't you give it a try?" "Summon Snow," Ling Han said. "Yes, young master," Huan Shui hurriedly responded. "Slap yourself." "Yes." Towards Ling Han's order, Call Snow naturally carried it out without the slightest bit of hesitation. With a wave of her hand, a heavy slap landed on that man's face. The man didn't expect Huan Shui to really dare to make a move. He also put on a posture of being slapped, so he naturally couldn't dodge. This slap made him see stars. One had to know that Huan Shui had advanced another step and possessed 7 meridians cultivation. How could such a huge slap in the face be pleasant? Fortunately, Huan Shui didn't use her full strength, or his face would have been slapped into a pulp. You dare hit me." The man was stunned, and then he revealed a furious expression. He also slapped Huan Shui. Huan Shui dodged and then counterattacked. She was 7 meridians while the man only had 6. Thus, after a few moves, Huan Shui completely gained the upper hand. Then, she slapped the man's face like it was his butt. Pa, crisp and clear. "What are you doing, you crazy woman? Let go of young Master Ming," the beautiful woman screamed. But she wasn't a cultivator and could only shout from the side. "Huh, isn't that Zhong Yangbi's younger brother, Zhong Yangming?" Someone said from the side. "Although he isn't much, his older brother Zhong is quite extraordinary. He became a novice alchemist at only 27, and has the reputation of being the second Emoguahao. Yes, Zhong Yangbi really is extraordinary. He's one of the most popular figures in the younger generation. He Yin Jun and Baba Tianhuang are known as the 3 heroes. They represent the most outstanding talents in alchemy, formations, and martial art. But to tell the truth, it's fortunate that Zhong Yangbi and Yin Jun are representatives of alchemy and formations. Otherwise, if they were in martial art, who could compare to Tuoba Tianhuang? Indeed, Tuoba Tianhuang is a genius that only appears once in 100 years in martial art. In the future, he will become an overlord that looks down on the world. People like Zhong Yangbi and Yin Jun are not his match. We're getting off topic. We're talking about Zhong Yangming. Him? He's just an idiot. But, isn't he afraid of Zhong Yangbi's anger by bullying his younger brother like this? That's right. Today is the auction that Zhong Yangbi's Master Emoguahao is holding. He'll definitely attend. Zhong Yangbi definitely won't let this go if he finds out that he's beaten Zhong Yangming here. The surrounding people discussed animatedly. Most of them loved to watch a good show. And the scene that had just happened was very much in line with their mentality of watching a good show. "Did you hear that?" Zhong Yangming roared. "My brother is Zhong Yangbi, and my brother's master is Master Emoguahao. Master Mo, if you anger me, I guarantee that you won't be able to buy a single pill in Hidden Tiger City." Ling Han only chuckled and pretended that he hadn't heard. Pa Call Snow gave him a heavy slap. He actually dared to challenge her young master? Humph. Enough. Ling Han waved his hand, and Call Snow immediately stopped. "What's going on?" Why is it so noisy? A man walked out with an impatient expression. Didn't they know that today was a big day for the Benevolent Heart Medicinal Hall? Young master who? Brother who? Everyone called out, appearing very polite. This was Pan who. Although he was an idiot, he was Emo Guahao's nephew. One had to know that a few days ago, Emo Guahao had released an improved version of the secret power pill. And now there was an improved version of the pulse-probing pill being auctioned. Even the city lord was alarmed, and he had expressed several times that Emo Guahao's improvements were a huge contribution that could be recorded in the annals of history and become a pillar of the country. With the rising tide, the boat also rose, and Pan Hu also became a hot commodity. Brother Hu. Zhong Yangming pounced over, his face full of grievance. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.